under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you join me in prayer? Almighty God, everlasting Father, wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace, I thank you for this town. I thank you for these leaders. I thank you that this is a place that still asks for divine wisdom. And so tonight we ask you to give our leaders, to give our neighbors your divine wisdom. Lord, we're looking at Irma, and we ask you to protect us from that storm as well. And I pray that there be peace upon this beloved city, that everyone has peace. And we just lift it all up to you and thank you for your love and your care. And it's in Jesus' name, my Lord and Savior, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Call the roll.
Councilman Fremont.
Here.
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Councilman Silver.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. Before we get into the public hearing, the gorilla in the room, of course, is the hurricane that's floating out there and barreling towards us. I don't know whether us specifically or Florida in general, and none of us know that yet, but I do want to let everybody know that even though we'll be discussing some of that business in preparation tonight, particularly in the city manager comments, I have called a special meeting for Thursday at 5 p.m. to take care of some general business. So if anybody has questions that don't get answered between now and then, we will have a public meeting in preparation Thursday at 5 p.m.
And Mayor, since the comments will probably occur in city manager comments toward the end of a probably long evening, obviously they can see those comments on the website tomorrow morning.
Hopefully one or two of them might get written about tonight.
Possibly.
Item 4, the fiscal year 2018 budget commences on October 1st, 2017 and continues through September 30th of 2018. The public hearing is now convened to discuss the millage rate and budget. We will begin with the City of Port Orange City Council discussion of the tentative millage rate necessary to fund the 2018 tentative budget for the City of Port Orange, the Community Redevelopment Agency for the Town Center, and the Community Redevelopment Agency for Eastport Business Center. The tentative millage rate to be levied is 4.5673 mils per $1,000 of valuation, and is an 8.89% increase in ad valorem tax revenues above the rollback rate. The rollback rate is 4.1945 mils per $1,000 of valuation. Council comments, Chase?
No, same thing, Mayor. I think I don't believe we're living within our means. I don't support this. There's nothing bad that's asked. I'm not angry at staff or anything of that nature. I just, like I said, you do what we can with what we have, and I think we're doing a lot of things that don't need to be done. This is I think we're putting ourselves at risk of handicapping ourselves in the future. We were looking at a massive hit to us in a couple of years, which will happen. Which demonstrates that people don't want their taxes raised. I think they don't want to pay more taxes more than they are asking for more services. And again, that's what I'm hearing, and I respect other councils' opinions. I respect other people's due diligence that they've done as well. But my constituents, people I speak to, the constant phrase I hear is, "Don't raise my taxes. Don't make me pay more." So that's who I'm here to represent.
Bob?
I, too, will vote against this. While I did feel that some modest increase was needed to cover employee wages, which is needed, pay increases were needed just to keep us current with the marketplace and to reward our employees for valiant service. However, I think far more than that is called in this budget. And this budget budget increase is far too extensive, so I'm going to be voting no.
Drew?
Excuse me. I look at it this way. While I don't disagree with either one of my colleagues, I feel that we've come a long way since 2008, 9, 10, 11, and some services were restored that were cut, and I'm not willing to remove services to I just don't want to go backwards. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. We're too good of a city to go backwards, and I just don't want us to move in that direction and negatively affect the citizens that are here because of what's provided. Even at the proposed millage rate, I believe that still puts us at third or fourth lowest in the county. And don't want to have the highest millage rate, but obviously, we're not going to be the lowest without a coastal community. And Ormond and New Smyrna have the beachfront and condos, and that increases your revenue because you can put a lot of properties on one, a lot of taxable things on one parcel. And I just am not willing to disrupt services and make cuts to go backwards.
Scott?
I appreciate all the comments that everybody's made through this process, and it seems like every time we gather and we have discussions that I go home and reflect continuously on these things and try to figure out what it is that the residents of Port Orange are looking for. What would they like to have more of, less of, none of, those types of things. I too, like Chase, talk to a great deal of people out there in the community. And like I've said before, I really think that residents pick Port Orange for a reason, and those reasons have cost involved. No municipal government escapes the cost of doing business. We are not immune to those increasing costs. We've even seen, like some of our bids, for example, when we're bidding out projects to get completed for the city, many times they don't even come anywhere close to what those budgeted amounts are. And that's because that cost of doing those business, getting work done for the residents is going up. And we can't escape it. That being said, I, like everybody else in this room, inherently do not have an interest in raising taxes, but I do have an interest in keeping the city above average and a quality place to live. I'm certainly open to discussion tonight on what it is we want to cut and do without, but I'm not interested in discussion about arbitrary numbers without knowing exactly what those consequences are. So if there are folks who want to have that discussion, I am agreeable 100%. We should have those and talk about what those items are.
Very good. Now hear from the public. Anybody like to speak to this?
Mayor, there's one more thing we need to add to the council comments that have been announced, and that is the reasons for the increase, and I would turn to the city manager for that assistance, if he could provide us that.
Mayor, Council, based on last year's revenue and budget execution rate, as well as this year's expected revenue, as well as Council's input as a governing body throughout the year, we proposed the original budget that included all the asks and additions to public safety, increased parks and rec with Riverwalk, as well as non-discretionary increases in insurance, pension, what we consider non-discretionary in insurance, pension, and full-year salaries. That rate was 4.8370, which was, as we discussed, about 15% over rollback and 8.59% over last year's adopted budget. We discussed that rate, and we came up with the new max millage rate of 4.5673, which was 8.89 over rollback and 2.54 over last year's adopted budget, which is where we are now. We went through the budget with your refined parameters to meet the new max millage rate. We cut a bunch of stuff that was on a list that had to do with infrastructure, some increase in service, and we also cut some things that ended up getting added back in last time we talked. Mainly the Babe Ruth that we added back in, and First Step Shelter, as well as some other cuts. Staff made those changes and were able to pay for the First Step addition out of the FY17 budget in lieu of finding money and cutting from other departments. We also found another option which resulted in cutting the attorney's outside services by $12K versus the original $25K requested. and that's based on a historical trend of spending between $115,000 to $151,000 on outside services, depending on what legal assistance we need, specialty services, and we ended up where we are now. Of course, this is general fund only. We're not talking about the CRAs this evening, but going back on the 17 budget, we had some non-executed budget. Some of the unexecuted money that is tied to projects that will be rolling forward, that have started but haven't been finished. That money will roll forward to continue with the project. There are some projects that never got started due to one reason or another, inability to execute properly, inability to plan properly in some cases, and then the hurricane put a pretty good dent in some of the public works projects that we had planned when we, we're still cleaning up. That money is carried over with council authority, if you will, and we'll discuss that in November like we do every year. The remainder of the money that was not executed due to projects being canceled, overcome by events, etc., falls to fund balance in accordance with your fund balance accordance with your fiscal guidance. Non-executed budget from last year will be used to replenish this fund balance, which you'll see in the out years is beneficial because right now we're kind of behind with getting our FEMA money, and putting money back into fund balance will help us for future emergencies such as the one that may be coming up here shortly. Additionally, Mr. Rosen is about finished with a 5-year forecast, which Council's been asking for a few years, at least at the 3-year. I think we've got a 5-year. We'll be able to use that to mold our budget discussions in the following years to discuss how we're going to possibly mitigate the effects of the homestead exemption should that referendum pass next year. So that's basically where we are and where we might be.
Hey, Jake.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the screens, is the POG feed on?
We're working on it. I'm talking, not reading. Hold on. I got nothing right now, but Jamie?
Spectrum is going currently, but the live feeds on Facebook and YouTube is down.
Okay, we're working on it, sir.
Okay.
Got it. It might not be here, but it might be going to the public. Thank you.
Discussion items, council, anything else before we go to the public? Anybody from the public like to speak to this?
Heading off Chickadee Drive, Mayor and Council. I think people in this room and people watching at home know that you don't prepare a budget without looking at last year's numbers. And if you look at last year's numbers, they're contained in the annual financial report. Page 32, we compare the budget that was passed, on which taxes were based, versus our actual expenditures. That's where you start any budget deliberation that I've ever seen. But that's not what happens here. Because if it did, we'd have to explain away in excess of $3.6 million of revenue over expenditures. According to the audit, according to the auditor, these are not my numbers, these are the city numbers. And for the life of me, I do not understand why, simply because someone alludes to, well, it's council policy, it's council direction, that we not spend one thin dime of this $3 million in buying down this year's tax increase is nonsensical to me. You all want to talk about not cutting services, not going backwards. You overbilled the customers, the citizens last year by $3.6 million. And you're likely going to do the same thing this year. Indeed, you do it every year. Go back and look at the CAFRs for the last 25 years. Every single year, it's the same thing, year in and year out. We under budget our revenues, we over budget our expenditures. So please, stop this narrative that we can't go backwards, we can't cut services. No one's talking about services. Services will be just fine. This tax increase, this 9% tax increase, is unwarranted, it is unjustified, and it is certainly not derived from any proper budget deliberation that I have ever seen before. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak to this? Council will now review the tentative budget and discuss revisions, if any. If no revisions, then we'll move on to item 5. Resolution number 17-35 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative property tax millage rate to be levied for fiscal year 2018, which runs October 1st, 2017 to September 30th of 2018, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve resolution number 17-35, adopting the City of Port Orange fiscal year 2018 tentative millage rate of 4.5673 mils per thousand of valuation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? Public comments? Call the roll.
Councilman Sherlock.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Piltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 3-2. The adopted tentative millage rate of 4.5673 mils per 1,000 valuation is an 8.89% increase in ad valorem tax revenues above the rollback rate. Resolution 1736, item 6. Come on, there we go. Resolution of the City of Port Orange, City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative operating budget for fiscal year October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2018 for the City of Port Orange, setting forth anticipated sources of revenue in the estimated amount of $98,365,206, setting forth expenditures in an equivalent amount, providing for an appropriation and procedures, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-36, adopting the City of Port Orange fiscal year 2018 tentative operating budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. And this is a question before my comment. My question to the city attorney. We will have the ability on the second vote to alter the budget if we need to?
Yes, it has to be recomputed and brought right back to
I
you.
understand that, but and why I say that is we are facing a pretty large storm coming in, and if it does impact us, we are in a difficult position because we have spent a large proportion of our reserves. We are beyond the council set minimum for reserves because we're waiting payment from FEMA. When that comes, I don't know. So we could be in what I would call a short, a cash short position for if the storm does do damage here and we have to react to it. So one of the things I would suggest for us all to be thinking about is what can we, if the storm does hit, we'll have to sit down and think what we can do to alter our budget to absorb some of the losses that we're going to have to pay if the storm does do damage. So,
Mayor and
yep.
council members, we do have a cap on what kind of alterations we can make.
Okay. Well, I'm altering the budget, not the millage rate.
Understood.
So we, may stop new
Council
hiring.
priorities can change at any
Yeah,
time.
Yeah. So that's all, and I just want the public to know that there may be alterations possibly. If the storm does come, it may change the rules a little. So we are thinking about that.
Just to let you know, as you talk about FEMA, they're on the ground in Texas. They're going to be on the ground in Puerto Rico real soon, and then it looks like they'll be on the ground here in Florida. We are still waiting on our FEMA reimbursement from last year, just like all the other cities and towns in the state of Florida. So it could put a squeeze on us. We'll do what we have to do. We absolutely do what we have to do. I have communicated personally with both of our United States senators and one of them has written to the FEMA director on our behalf, and the behalf of not just Port Orange, but the communities in Florida to see what they can do about that. So we're not just sitting on our hands and waiting for FEMA to do their job. We're being proactive as well. But it certainly could impact us moving forward. Any other council discussion? Public comments on item 7?
Yes.
Ted.
Come on.
Heading off to Chickadee Drive again. The taxpayers of Port Orange last year were told the city needed $12,531,562 to run the police budget. But the police budget only spent $11,831,185, leaving an overcharge in essence to the taxpayers of $700,377. Can we get an explanation here tonight as to why the police budget was so much higher than what police expenditures were? And can we get an additional explanation here tonight, or an assurance that we don't have the exact same thing done in the budget, the operating budget, right in front of you right now that you're going to vote on? So it's a two-part thing, Mr. Mayor. The first is, can we get an explanation here in this public hearing as to what happened with the police budget last year, the $700,000 overage, and then an explanation and an assurance that that's not what's in the works. Vote you're going to take here in just a moment. Thank you.
We can certainly discuss that. I know that Mr. Nostel might have missed it in the workshops when we discussed the same thing when we were talking about the manpower shortage we had in police last year and the impact it had on the budget. But that was a manpower shortage felt by a lot of police agencies in the area. And it's something that we've had to react to in pushing to increase our starting wage. Hopefully that we've come very close to, I believe we have a tentative agreement that's going to get voted on soon?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, it's something that we've worked on with our unions. It's something that it's a council priority to make sure that we're paying a fair and living wage to these guys and girls who are doing our work for us every day. So it certainly had an impact last year when we were shorthanded on the people that were there.
This is a common, what Ted is referring to is a common situation in government, and local governments in particular, and that is called, it's often got even a nickname called the carryover account. And it's employees, when anyone leaves, most of it in a city that the majority of money is spent on salaries, that when an employee leaves, there's a period of time before someone's rehired, and that is money. And generally, that account can run between 5 and 10% of the total budget for the city, and it occurs pretty regularly. As if you were in the earlier discussions of the budget, I had suggested, which many communities do in this country, and I'm sure we're going to be, given what I think the 5-year projections are showing, is a carryover account becomes a budgeted amount in setting the tax rate. So a certain proportion of the budget is covered by that anticipated
turnover.
So it is.
I don't think we wanted to anticipate being 20 officers down.
The reason this year why we didn't want to do that this year is it's not a wise thing to do when your reserves are low. And, you know, we hope to the good Lord that FEMA does come through, but we don't have any direct assurances that it will be what at rate we think it should be.
Or when.
And the other item is, I do plan next year, if the FEMA money comes back and the carryover account continues, which I'm assured it will be, to use it to offset any future tax increases. Because I agree with what people have said. It's the taxpayers' money that wasn't spent and should be given back to them. So,
any other council comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
no.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 3-2. Item 7, Resolution 1737, a resolution of the City of the Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative capital budget for fiscal year October 1, 2017 through September 30th, 2018 for the City of Port Orange, setting forth anticipated sources of revenue in the amount of $8,741,936, setting forth expenditures in an equivalent amount, providing for an appropriation expenditures, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-37, adopting the City of Port Orange fiscal year 2018 tentative capital budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? There being none, comments from the public? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Item 8 is Resolution 1738. A resolution of the Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative property tax millage rate to be levied for the Town Center Tax Increment District for fiscal year 2018, October 21, 2017 to September 30th, 2018, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-38, adopting the Community Redevelopment Agency for Port Orange Town Center fiscal year 2018 tentative millage rate of 4.5673 mils per thousand of valuation.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Council comments? And we also like to speak to this. Call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Item 10, Resolution 1740, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Florida, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative property tax millage rate to be levied for the Eastport
Mayor?
tax.
9.
Yeah, I think we skipped number 9.
We skipped number 9.
Yes.
Let me go back.
did.
My bad. The numbering got off by 1. I'll blame Robin. Resolution number 17-39.
Okay.
Is that better, Robin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative Town Center Increment District operating budget for fiscal year October 1, 2017 through September 30th, 2018, setting forth the anticipated sources of revenue in the estimated amount of $479,438, setting forth expenditures in an equivalent amount, providing for an appropriation procedures, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-39, adopting the Community Redevelopment Agency for Port Orange Town Center fiscal year 2018 tentative operating budget.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Council comments? There being none, anybody else like to speak to this? Call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Now can I do 1740?
Yes.
Resolution 17-40. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative property tax millage rate to be levied for the Eastport Tax Increment District for fiscal year 2018, October 1, 2017 to September 30th, 2018, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-40, adopting the Community Redevelopment Agency for Eastport Business Center fiscal year 2018 tentative millage rate of 4.5673 mils per thousand of valuation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? Anyone in the public like to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Resolution 17-41. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, adopting the tentative Eastport Tax Increment District operating budget for fiscal year October 1st, 2017 through September 30th, 2018, setting forth anticipated sources of revenue in the estimated amount of $199,872, setting forth expenditures in an equivalent amount, providing for an appropriation procedures, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-41, adopting the Community Redevelopment Agency for Eastport Business Center fiscal year 2018 tentative operating budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? Being none. Anyone from the public like to speak to this? Being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
No.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
No.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2.
Nope. You ready for?
Drew, could I have a motion?
Sure. I'd like to motion to direct the city clerk to publish an advertisement providing notice of the City of Port Orange City Council intent to adopt the final millage rate and final operating and capital budget for the City of Port Orange, Community Redevelopment Agency, and for Port Orange Town Center, and the Community Redevelopment Agency for Eastport Business Center, complying with the budget summary requirements of the law.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? None?
That's standard
Call the roll.
procedure.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Hey, we got a 5-0 on something, even if it's just an advertisement. In addition to the foregoing general operating budget millage levy, there is a vote-approved millage levy of .3174 mils to fund the debt service for the 2016 general obligation refunding bonds issued for public safety capital facilities. A public hearing will be held on September 19th, 2017 at 6:30 p.m. in City Council chambers right here at City Hall, 1000 City Center Circle, Port Orange, Florida, to discuss and adopt a final millage rate, the final operating and capital budget for 2018, and the City of Port Orange Community Redevelopment Agency of Port Orange Town Center and the Community Redevelopment Agency for Eastport Business Park. Thank you. Second reading of ordinance 2017-27, which is ordinance number 2017-27 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia, Florida, approving the 15th Amendment to the Countryside Planned Unit Development Master Land Use Plan for approximately plus or minus 1.5 acres, generally located on the southwest corner of Dunlawton Avenue and South Swallowtail Drive, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2017-27, approving the 15th Amendment to the Countryside PUD Master Land Use Plan.
Second.
You have a motion second. Second reading comments? Scott?
No. Oh.
Drew?
Not on second reading, no, we're good.
Bob?
No.
Chase? Good. Anybody else like to speak to this? Not call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. Is that another 5-0?
Yep.
Two in a row?
You're on a roll.
Yep. First reading of ordinance number 2017-28. I better take a drink of water before reading this one. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, amending Chapter 2 to revise the definition of retail pharmacy to include medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facility and removing the definitions for medical marijuana cultivation, medical marijuana dispensaries, and medical marijuana processing facilities. Amending Chapter 12 to remove the parking requirements for medical marijuana-related uses. Amending Chapter 16 to remove the marijuana-related uses from the list of prohibited home occupations and to remove Section 13 regarding a moratorium on medical marijuana-related activities, facilities, and activities. Amending Chapter 17 to remove medical marijuana dispensaries as a special exception use in the community commercial zoning district, and remove medical marijuana cultivation and medical marijuana processing facilities as a special exception uses in the commercial, industrial, and light industrial zoning districts. Amending Chapter 18 to remove the special requirements for medical marijuana-related special exception uses, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Whew. Somebody had to write that.
Good job.
I'd like to move to approve ordinance number 2017-28.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. You're on.
Penelope Cruz, planner. So what he said. Basically, as you all know, we were here before you guys in July to go over this in the council meeting July 18th. the state passed a new law at the end of June and basically preempted the existing regulations that we have on the books and gave local governments two options: to either ban medical marijuana facilities or to adopt an ordinance that treats them similar to retail pharmacies. And based on council's direction, on July 18th, staff is before you with this ordinance that is basically treating them as a retail use. The state law also preempted and delegated all authority with regards to cultivation and processing to the state, and so the ordinance addresses that as well. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Quick question. I notice we removed several of the prohibitions. So you can technically grow marijuana in the city of Port Orange if you want.
No. The state law still has their registry.
Okay, so cultivation is controlled by the state and we have no
Yes.
control over it. So if one of their registered users wanted to open a marijuana farm, they could.
If it's zoned, if it has the agriculture or light industrial or commercial industrial zoning, and if it's 500 feet away from a school, and they're on the state registered as the grouping of, I think it's like 7 agencies that can do
This
it.
is, so what got me a little confused is we're doing more than, we're permitting other elements other than just the dispensing. Cultivation and manufacturing.
Our code already had that in there. We just had it as a special exception, similar to dispensaries. We were treating them both as a special exception, which had to come before council. The state law said we can't do that. The state law gave us those two options. We can either ban it fully, the dispensaries, or we can allow it as a retail pharmacy, but they preempted us completely on how we handle cultivation and production.
So cultivation, we have nothing to say about
No,
by state law.
correct.
Chase?
Even if we ban it?
Correct. Not the they didn't give us any kind of
Doesn't matter.
authority into that side of it.
Yeah, this one stinks for me, to be honest with you. I'm part of the 29% that did not vote for this. It's not so much this; it's more so the foreseeable future. Let's call it what it is. It's the foot in the door for legalization of marijuana, recreational use, which I will vehemently oppose. Frankly, I just don't want any more smoking out there. I don't care how healthy they say it is; not healthy for my kids to intake it. But that being said, I always did say that I'd be willing to vote for something I did not agree with if it's what the people wanted. And clearly the people spoke in this situation. And I looked for them, and I talk to residents all the time, as I indicated earlier. And I looked for a reason to not vote for it. But the fact is, the overwhelmingly people, 71% of the voters put it in. That speaks volume, and that's what I'm here to do, is represent the people's wishes, so long as it doesn't violate my personal convictions. So that's what I'll do. However, I want to express my reservation, and I still want to continue to ask legal to look at the ramifications of future inactions, because as we see the legalization of the recreational use, what I don't want are for these dispensaries to be able to transition into that. If they're allowed to be put anywhere, what I don't want to see is that. I'd like there to be continue to check on that, and keep us posted on that. Yeah. With that said, that's where I'm at on this.
That's something we'll have an opportunity to. I mean, right now, state law does not allow the smokable kind. So we're talking pills and oils and
Right now.
and for right now. So we can certainly, as a body, and we can discuss that at a future date if you wish. If you want to lobby the state to make sure it stays that way, we can do that. You certainly have the right as an individual. We could do that as a body, but I think it'd be important to hear from our constituents before we decide to do something like that. But for right now, that's not what this includes.
I would like to pay attention to some of the other cities that are tightening their regulations on some of these pharmacies. I don't want to punish other businesses. At the same time, I want to explore all options, because while 71% of the people did vote for the legalization of it, they did not vote for the placement of these. I think that's a distinction that needs to be pointed out. So I'd like to explore those options, not committing to it, but I'd just like to see some of these other cities, what they're doing with it.
Drew?
Oftentimes, the state will make a decision, and we're bound by that because we have to come into compliance with the law, and this is one of those situations. And
They couldn't make a decision. They had to call a special session.
well, yeah, correct, but I mean, ultimately, like I said, 71% of the voters statewide said yes, and so this will bring us into compliance with state law, and we'll hope that the regulations and the management of it and the administration of it all works out for the best.
Scott?
Obviously, the state put us in a pretty tight position with only giving you two options. And that part I don't like from the state. I think that there should be more flexibility with the home rule concept for us to decide where things fit best in our community. That being said, quite honestly, I have more concern with what comes out of most of our pharmacies that we have now than what's going to come out of these medical marijuana dispensaries. So we've got big problems there that we still need to continue to deal with. And so
It's amazing. A couple weeks ago, you and I attended a session on opioid epidemic,
Right.
and talking about the number of people that go in and get prescriptions right off the bat, and doctors aren't even asking questions. And I have to ask, is this an alternative to that? And I have heard from people who suffer chronic pain from debilitating illnesses who have asked me and have told me, I don't need to smoke it, but I don't want to get hooked on those things, because once I start taking those pain meds for something that's chronic, I'll never get off them, and I want another option, and that's one thing that I've heard. So I don't want to go far down that line, and like you, Scott, I'm very, very concerned about the states they keep encroaching on our ability to make decisions for our own community, because they feel like, I don't know, that maybe they're better for whatever the case may be.
Well, I think it's a state with a mentality of one size fits all, and one size doesn't necessarily fit 420 municipalities or whatever we have now in the state of Florida. So for that concept, I don't like that concept. But
It's awful hard when a third of the people in the state live in South Florida, and you can't tell me that they have a lot in common with people who live in Bartow or Daytona Beach or Orlando or you can go on and on and on. Of course, I think I'm
Question
getting
for
a little off topic. So
Question for the city attorney. There is no approving dispensaries for medical marijuana does not tie us legally into using those dispensaries for recreational use of marijuana.
I believe that's correct. It will
So-
depend on future legislation
Yeah.
as to whether
Well,
that
that if
remains
the
correct.
I cannot worry about. I mean, I can worry and will worry about what the state legislature does, but my vote doesn't affect that.
Yes, sir.
And this vote, as I can see it, is for medical marijuana. A great deal of debate about it, but a lot of people think it helps them. And, in fact, I had wished that the state would have simply treated it as a medical dispensary and allowed or had existing pharmacies use it, dispense it. That, to me, would have made sense. But,
you mean responsible businesses with a proven track record?
Correct. So,
Great.
and the way it's now, if you look at the way it's now configured, it won't compete with underground marijuana. I mean, the people that will be using it are people that truly have a medical condition, because most of it does not have high enough values of THC for the recreational purposes. It's the various, the argument is like with a lot of substances, it's the other parts of it that have the medical impacts. I myself think it's the first step in a broader program, but legally, for those that wish to have it, I can make no argument why they shouldn't have it. And, if it helps them, God bless them. I go into a large room every 21 days and sit with a lot of sick people that have cancer, and some find it comforting. If we can provide them with some comfort, God bless it, they deserve it. So, if it helps them.
Would anyone here like to speak to this? Come on.
My name is Danielle Bailey, and I am a medical marijuana patient here in the city of Port Orange. And we don't smoke it, we eat it. And in 2003, to speak to you, Mr. Stiltner, I was on 90 pain pills a month. I was on 100% disability. I was on food stamps, and I was on welfare. And in 2017, I own my own medical supply company, and I pay a whole lot of taxes to the city. And I do it smoking medical marijuana. And for you guys to say that I can't get it here, but my neighbor can go get 400 pain pills and fentanyl patches and they can't go to work, that's not fair. And it's not right. And I'm a single mom, and you know my boys. And I'm not a bad person. And for you guys to say I can't have it, or I shouldn't have it, or it's a gateway, or it's this, or it's that, you're wrong. I've done it since 2003, and I'm 100% better than I was in 2003. And I have medical Mayo Clinic records to show how I'm 3 times stronger today than I was in 2003 taking stupid opiates. So you guys should get out and look at the patients that are using it and see how much better we are versus the people out there taking the opiates. And then when their doctor decides one day that, oh, well, you're getting 160 this month and we don't want you to become addicted, so we're going to cut you to 30, you go look and see what they do to get their extra pills, because you can't go from 160 to 30 pills in 1 month. And our doctors expect us to do that. And it's not a gateway drug. I don't do cocaine. I don't do any other drugs. I use my medical marijuana, and I work every single day with every physician in this county. So you guys need to take that into consideration. I know I sound, I'm very passionate about this because you're going to hear I'm sure y'all know who I am and what this city has done to me. So, I mean, I'm not a bad person, and I've raised 3 very, very good boys, smoking my medical marijuana or eating my cookies, but not taking the pain pills. So just take this into consideration, guys. That's all I ask you to do.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Sarah Jones, 44 Woodfield Drive. I want to endorse what the previous speaker said, and I want to comment about the aspersion that this was probably passed by the people of South Florida, that we're a little different here. That was said, Scott, you're shaking your head, but one of the councilmen did make that reference that there are a lot of votes coming out of South Florida. It is was it you, Don?
That's not what I said.
That's not what he said, Sarah.
What did you say?
No, I just said that 1/3 of the voters are in South Florida.
That's right, right.
And with that many people there, they don't always have things in common with people up here.
Well,
And that was a general topic, not about this.
Okay. Well, I think this is a topic which, whether you're in South Florida, North Florida, East Florida, or West Florida, it is a thing of common. And to know the history, there was a time much earlier in this country when marijuana was an accepted medicine. And secondly, to treat it as such a terrible, almost drug of abuse, when the drug of abuse in the United States is alcohol. Alcohol is what causes more family disruptions, more deaths, more medical problems than any other thing we consume. So I don't like sitting up there holier than thou, because even I think this is a good step. I would have liked to have seen it come through the pharmacies. I don't know why it has to be something different, but I applaud the step, and I know the relief it's going to give for many people. Thank you.
Sarah, I think you have a sympathetic counsel. We don't need a
Yeah, you
tongue
trying to talk us
lashing.
out of it?
I don't.
You can't
I
be
don't,
talked out
I
of it.
think you're
Yes,
going to
we
see
can.
we're much more sympathetic
We're-
than many other cities. We
Did you get that feeling when you listened to them? I didn't. Then I misunderstood you then.
Then, just because I want to address Danielle, my reference was to recreational smoking. I know you and I know your boys, but that was not my comment. It was to recreational use. And
Medical leads to recreational.
no. I said the vote is one step toward the legalization. That was my comment.
Hey guys, Mark Dickinson, Herbert Street. Not here to try and get my property, it's an acre and a half, converted over to agricultural, but is there any benefits to the city that from this? It's just like another business tax. They're going to pay $50 or $150 or $500. Is that the way this works when these dispensaries come in?
yeah.
That's about it.
To be
Okay.
just, it would any other business same.
Right,
It,
yeah,
it-
'cause
it is
usually-
clearly an emotional and there's a lot of debate on it, but I see it as just another type of pharmacy.
Right.
So
And one of the
Regulated
thi-
just like
It's there.
pharmacies.
Yeah,
A pharmacy.
And in my experience with both you guys, I've never come across someone that was using marijuana that was violent or aggravated. It was always the drunks that we'd have to take to jail and
Yeah.
do that. And then the other question I would have regarding this is with Denver, they seem to have like a thriving community and a lot more money coming in. Is there any kickback from the state? I shouldn't use that word, but that's technically what it would be.
There's
Nothing
no
to-
money. There's not
that would
a
solve
lot
your
of money
budget.
to be made for this. The type of thing they have to go through to produce it. It really is a medical item.
Sure.
And it's not something I would see as being abused.
Right.
It's for people that it helps physically, and it's a whole different thing the way they've had it structured. So it's nothing like that. I couldn't picture why no one would use it unless they had a good reason physically to use it.
Right, absolutely. I'm not for or against it. I just don't have enough
It's
information. I'm trying to
designed.
learn, so.
It's very narrowly designed. I mean, they've taken out most of the, a lot of the pleasure elements, which are with the high THC elements. So it is clearly medicinal, and it's not really a big step because the stuff has been used consistently for the last 50 years in cancer treatment. They just have a different name for it, but it's the same thing. It's derived in the same ways.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
I think it interesting that Big Pharma is one of the biggest lobbyists against medical marijuana.
Of course.
Do they see competition on the horizon? I don't know. Anybody else like to speak to this? Come on. We'll come back to council here in a minute.
Sarah is quite right. There was a time in this country when marijuana was perfectly legal. And ask yourself why it became not legal. And the last comment up there, Big Pharma. That's who caused marijuana to become illegal. Now, the one thing I didn't hear any of you say up here tonight, and I wish you would before you conclude with this item, is if the step that's being taken here tonight lessens the violence in pursuing this war on drugs, it will be a good thing. The war on drugs has done more harm to this country. It's turned us into prison state USA, the highest incarceration rate in the world. And don't tell me for a minute, oh, it's only the bad guys in jail over drugs. No siree, dog. This war on drugs has to be curtailed. It has to taper off. It has to be brought back. And if this is a first step, I welcome it. Because the real danger here is the violence that's taking place in pursuing this war on drugs. Thank you.
Anyone else? Back to council. Final comments?
Yeah, I see absolutely no problem with the way it's structured. I wish we had a little more leeway in positioning it. We already have too many pharmacies. I would have loved to have seen them allow regular pharmacies because this is pharmaceutical grade marijuana. It should be given. I do feel it helps a number of people, and I can see no reason to deny them the help. And by the way, I'll go even further. We've heard a lot of attacks on drugs like morphine and codeine and hypercodeine. One of the things that's very distressing is I literally know several hundred people that if they didn't have their pain pills, their life would be absolutely miserable. And that's what makes it so hard, because it's easily abused, but it also helps a lot of people. And that's what makes the drug thing so difficult, because you don't want people hooked. On the other hand, you do want to make it available for those that need it. Because if you have cancer, you're going to want some relief, and it will provide some relief. And the same thing with marijuana.
Anybody else? Not? Call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stillman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Go. Item 14, public comments on consent agenda items only. There being none, may I have,
I want to pull 18. Is this the time to pull it?
this is it?
What is that? That's on the PUD thing?
Yes. Anything else?
No, that's all I wanted to pull.
May I have a motion for the balance?
Move to approve the balance of the consent agenda.
Second.
You have a motion second, no resolutions. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 18.
My only concern is, in reading the write-up, there was a comment made that the buffer along Dunlawton is kind of out of date. And I feel just the opposite. What has made Dunlawton the beautiful street it was that buffer that it is. I have people all over the area come to me and say how farsighted you all were in how you developed Dunlawton. It clearly is the prettiest main street around. And, you know, I'm very ill at ease at this late date that obviously people feel that that buffer is no longer appropriate and wish to gradually, I guess, dispense with it. As a councilman, I'm in favor of keeping Dunlawton the lovely street it is, and the buffer along the road with the mature trees and everything was a very, very important part of the Dunlawton experience. You know, I can't vote for, you know, removing this buffer area.
Mr. Clark, you want to comment? You got some information for us?
Wayne Clark, Community Development Director. And I apologize if our write-up wasn't clear. The intent was not that the buffer's outdated, that most of Dunlawton is not in an easement. It's a buffer that's required with the site plan approval, and some of the areas are in conservation easements. And we've seen a couple of those come before you where we've had areas that was just the practice a number of years ago to put things in conservation easement, which clouds the title of a private piece of property. But the code still requires the buffer. The code still requires the minimum amount of landscaping within the buffer. A conservation easement, like the area in front of Walmart, that's in its natural state, is what you typically see. This area, as you can see, I don't know what happened because it's been there a long time. It's clearly not in its natural state. It has been maintained. So I'm sorry that we didn't do a good enough job in the write-up, but the point was if it stays in an easement, they can't get in there and maintain it and keep it looking nice. They have to just let it grow up. And so the idea of getting rid of the easement and continuing with the site plan, they can go back in and replant. They can make sure the grass stays green. They can take care of drainage issues in there, but they will not be tearing out trees. It's just that it's not in its natural state.
So since it is non-natural, they want the ability to maintain it? Is that what they're asking
yes,
for?
Sir. That's correct. Yes, sir.
What do I look for to make sure that that buffer stays there?
The landscape requirements in the code mandate that depth is there.
Is existing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the landscaping requirements of the code require both the dimension and the minimum plantings within it.
And this also would permit them to enhance that area and add landscaping, and they could exceed the minimum requirement, can they not?
They couldn't even actually go back in and plant new things in there if it's in a conservation.
Okay.
It was just an inappropriate tool for what's there, but we would still protect the buffer, and it is still a very important part of the community.
May I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve resolution number 17-34.
Second.
Any other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Citizen participation on agenda, Ted Noftel.
Good evening. I want to talk to you here tonight about civil asset forfeiture. I think it's very appropriate considering what we've talked about earlier. Civil asset forfeiture is an odious practice that grew out of the war on drugs. To deprive anyone of their property without due process of law is unconstitutional, it's immoral, and it's unethical. And it has encouraged more good police officers and more good police departments to embellish the truth in an effort to profit on the benefits from policing for profit than it's been worth. This practice needs to end in Port Orange. And before someone starts saying, we need to start punishing the Colombian drug lords, well, guess what? They're like unicorns in Port Orange. They don't exist. But what does exist are ordinary people in ordinary houses on ordinary streets who don't like it when the police come in and seize their assets. The asset forfeiture stemming from a raid on a Broken Bow residence in June of 16 has turned into a boondoggle. The courts gave back half the assets, and then the city gave back the other half of the assets in a voluntary stipulation of dismissal that it filed with prejudice against itself. And now the taxpayers of this town find themselves wide open to what is likely going to be a very costly civil case. You know, without debate and without criticism, no administration can prosper, can succeed. I would hope council here tonight makes clear that nobody in its employee is going to be allowed to cover their mistakes, to withhold from the press and the public those facts they deserve to know, including what policy is in place right now governing asset forfeiture? Who approved it and when? And has that policy changed since the Broken Bow seizure? Who specifically approved this forfeiture? Was it the manager? Was it the police chief? Was it others farther down the command chain? Who approved it? How much has this action cost taxpayers to date in manpower hours and in direct payments? And finally, you need to be asking yourself, what in the city actions were so botched that it returned the seized assets in a voluntary agreement with prejudice?
Thank you, Mr. Noftel. Mike Gardner.
I would like to say before I sit down, you need to check that timer. I went through this
Thank
speech
you,
a
Mr.
dozen
Knopfler.
times today, and I didn't hit 3 minutes at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Noftel.
Yeah.
Obviously, a few seconds are very precious to you all. What you see on the screens is a video. Ted made reference to it at 5970 Broken Bow Lane. It was made on June 17th of last year. On that date, members of the Port Orange SWAT team gathered at a residence to serve a search warrant. Now, what I've got to say about this raid is highly critical of the Port Orange Police Department. And when things like this happen, especially when drugs are involved, there's a natural tendency to look at the person making the criticism and say you're some sort of pro-drug nut. You're a cop hater. That's not the case in my case. I've probably got more reason than anybody in this room to despise the use of drugs. And I count among my personal acquaintances and friends several retired Leos. The best man at my first wedding was a military policeman. So that's not where I'm coming from. But at any rate, what's shown in this video is a raid by the SWAT team, 9 or 10 SWAT members who appear to be carrying AR-15 or similar rifles, sidearms, wearing helmets and BDUs, who knock on the resident's door, give them 10 to 15 seconds, then break down the door with a battering ram, toss in a flashbang grenade, and arrest the people at gunpoint. Now, primarily what they were looking for is evidence of marijuana possession and marijuana possession with the intent to distribute. I'm not here to argue the merits of it, the legalities of it, or anything like that. What I want to point out is what seems to me to be a really over-the-top level of violence associated with serving a search warrant. I would certainly hope that if anybody felt there were drug use or sales in my neighborhood where children and unsuspecting residents live, and you can see a couple residents in the early frames of this video who seem to be walking down the street, that the police would have the decency to knock on the door in daylight and try to serve their warrant, rather than coming and doing something like this. And you can see some members of the team here going around knocking out the lights and the cameras around this house. I just think that any increase in public safety that might be gained from a raid such as this are far outweighed by the potential for something going wrong. You know, close to a dozen heavily armed men with adrenaline flowing in a residential neighborhood, that's not a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. You didn't fill one out, but I'll take you anyway.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Come on.
Sarah Jones, 44 Woodfield Drive. I simply want to note that when Ted Naftal was speaking, he needed maybe half a minute more, and you just shut him off. And yet I've sat here when other people speak, and it wasn't a critical thing to you, you let them go on. So just because it's a message that is critical of you, in a little bit, maybe given a little bit tough way, sometimes it pays to give somebody an extra 30 seconds. It's perhaps the wisest thing to do rather than to shut them off like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Blake, did he make it back? Christopher Blake was going to tell us about the Second Chance Veterans Foundation because they're doing a golf tournament on September 30th in support of their cause. If anybody would like to know more about it, I have the flyer, which I'll be giving to the clerk. But since he didn't make it back, I guess he doesn't get to speak. Council comments. Keeping in mind that Jake is going to brief us on some hurricane-related things, and we've got an agenda item coming up, maybe we can hold those comments on that till then. But anything else, Scott?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the passing of Diane Lindau, who really served not only Port Orange but Volusia County as a whole in a great capacity by reading her obituary into tonight's record, if I may. Diane Lindau, age 74, sadly passed away on August the 23rd, 2017. She is survived by her husband of 54 years, Max Landau, her children, Michelle Landau, Rachel Campos, and grandchildren, Shayna Landau, Logan, and Bryn Campos. Diane was predeceased by her eldest daughter, Heather Lynn Landau. Diane will always be remembered as a loving wife, mother, and grandmother, and friend that she was. She volunteered almost 30 years to support police agencies in Port Orange and the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. She was an active victims advocate and member of the Sheriff's Citizen on Patrol Unit. She'll be sorely missed, for sure.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you doing that.
Thank you, Scott. She was a wonderful one.
And I tell you what, whenever somebody makes a contribution like that, absolutely their obituary should be read into a public record just like that.
Sure.
I appreciate that. You got anything else?
That's it for right now. My other comments will be pertaining to Jake's stuff later.
Okay. Drew?
The hurricane thing. but-
Hurricane.
Yeah.
It's the gorilla in the room. Bob, anything else?
Yes, I have one concern with ALFs. I know we're limited, and here was the question. What size ALF is permitted? And I guess this is for community development, where we do not have jurisdiction. Because what's happening is we have ALFs coming into the community, and the state says they can be in a residential community, meet the criteria. But once they get in, we're having terrible problems with them with parking and other things as they modify their structures and bring in employees and a number of other people. Am I wrong when it's over 6 people in the room, people in the place? What's the rule for ALFs?
In Bourbon Community Development, the state allows for an ALF to be in a residential neighborhood as long as it's 6 people or less. That basically you got to be within 1,000. You can't be within 1,000 feet of another ALF there. The state allows it in that case. In terms of our codes, we still have to make sure they meet the proper parking requirements, which typically for that type of room facility is around 3 spaces, and most single-family homes can accommodate those parking requirements. Then they have to follow our parking requirements in terms of parking on the street and stuff like that. Then too with employees, but the state does does not prohibit us from as long as it's 6 or less and it's 1,000 feet by state law. They're allowed to go into the city then.
Why are we having so many complaints, continuing complaints, when they're in the neighborhood? And it's largely around parking. Do we need, and there's nothing we can do to tighten up the parking concerns?
We could look more carefully into the state requirements there to see what we have in terms of parking. But in terms of the based off the number of bedrooms that they have in the facility, that's basically ties back to our parking requirements there, and they are meeting our codes, our parking requirements in our code when we were reviewing those. Then,
so we may need to look at them because it seems to be a continuing problem.
So I believe that at least the complaints that I get in the city manager's office are a lot of cars parking in the street. There's no law, unfortunately, against a lot of cars parking in the street. So unless we change that, I get it. I think we all get it. When there's 6 or 7 cars parking in the vicinity of your house, blocking the street, it's very inconvenient.
Well, it's also
that's where I'm getting the complaints as well. We're like, there's a lot of cars parked in front of that house. Yeah.
But it is, if the cars have to go into the oncoming lane of traffic, which is unhappily on a lot of our streets, several of the ones where these are being talked about, then it does become a violation.
So if it's a safety factor, Chief and I can look at no parking on the street, but that will go for the residents of that area as well. If there's no parking on the street, then there's no parking on the street. I don't believe it to be a safety issue as much as it is an inconvenience issue.
It's definitely an inconvenience, and depending on if it's on a curb, maybe there is a safety issue.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Chase?
No, I'm good tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Item 22, report from Kemper Sports on the Cypress Head Golf Course. He springs right up.
Good evening, Mr. City Managers, members of the council. Bob Duquette, General Manager, Cypress Head Golf Course, Mr. Mayor. Just go over a brief report. Revenues, this is actually the report for July. We finished at $81,954 versus a budget amount of $84,550. Our range was equal to budget, and we were over in merchandise sale by $1,373. Our payroll for the month was lower than our projected budget for a savings of $4,105. Our operating expenses slightly over by $517. And the month of July is our 10th month in the fiscal year, and our revenues currently are being ahead of budget by $50,407 as we offer great customer service and outstanding course conditions. Our payroll year to date is under projected budget by $8,866, and our expenses are over budget $13,720, and again, mostly due to expenses required for herbicides, fertilizers, insecticides, and top dressing materials for our greens. Month of July was, of course, it's hard to remember, but month of July we had 8 inches of rain in our area, and due to that rain, we had 7 days of cart path restrictions. If you've ever played golf, you will understand that a lot of our members are older, players are older, and they really don't want to play with limited access to the golf course. So it did affect us in terms of number of rounds and a little bit why the revenues were down. But even with all those challenges, we were at 97% of our revenue budget. In terms of tee sheet, we had 3,265 total rounds for the month, which was 2,469 paid, 557 annual rounds with Cypress Pass, and 239 other rounds. And our breakdown for 18 holes rounds were 2,596, with 575 9-hole rounds. During the course for maintenance process, we perform our verticutting, top dressing of all of our putting surfaces according to our agronomic schedule. And we also are rolling our putting surfaces, which is designed to increase the playability as well as the speed of the greens. And our maintenance team continues with all projects on the golf course, spots spraying for weeds, detailing cart paths, tee sign beds, and all the bunkers. In terms of the golf shop, we sold $275 in gift card sales, and we also sold $6,143 in pro shop sales. The staff at Cypress Head also continues to offer lesson packages for beginners. We do a Golf Get Ready program, and due to the success that we had with player development, we've also done junior clinics every Saturday, as well as a summer camp also held in August, which was well attended as well. We also hosted a Volusia Flagler Junior Golf Association event, which we had 40 junior golfers from the area, and so they all got to see how great Cypress Head was. Our Director of Sales and Marketing, Reggie Hunter, is focusing on booking a lot of tournament events, and we were just recently informed that the Daytona Beach News Journal that we were voted the best golf course in Volusia County for the 8th year, and our best golf shop in Volusia County for the 2nd year in a row. So we're really proud of all that. We've got a great junior program, which we would continue through the course of the summer. Our kids play free. If you had a paid adult, kids would play it for any time. That worked out really well. We also shared all of our information with the Parks and Rec Department for the City of Port Orange, for our camps, and for other junior golfers. Our mind share, which is our comments basically as we sent out questionnaires to all of our players. Our overall rating in July was a 9.2 for the golf course, with a recommended rating of 9.4 and our service rating at 9.6. All right, Cypress Head is very excited. In the month of August, we're going to hosted the Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce golf tournament, which was well received. We also hosted the Spruce Creek Girls Volleyball tournament, which was also greatly received. And the Executive Women's Golf Association in August was also held. A couple quick comments. Also, in the month of August, as you all know, we lost our restaurant operations. So I'd like to personally and publicly thank the City of Port Orange and their staff, in particular Ms. Sue Lavallo and Bruce Ferguson and all of their staff for everything that they did to help us get back in operations. Don Berg has stepped in as our restaurant manager, and with all of the Kemper, my staff, Kemper, all together, between a combination of everybody, we've got the operations for the restaurant open, serving food, serving alcohol, beer, which is a necessary portion for golf. But I really like to publicly thank the city for all they've done to help us out, to get that operation back and running.
Is that supposed to mean that beer helps golf games?
It does.
It does.
That and keeping your own score.
It helps interpretation of golf games.
Questions, council?
Yeah, I'd just be interested. Are we tracking the cost of the restaurant? I'd like to see like a monthly tracking of how much it's costing us.
We are. Actually, we just got the process evaluated. We've got.
I understand you're just starting basically.
Yeah, we've got all the software set up for all the food and restaurant, food and beverage operations. We'll have it all tracked and be able to give you that report next time.
Okay. Chase?
Yeah, just one comment. We every report, I like what I'm seeing, but I'm also hearing every budget. We're always over budgeted on fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide. every month, we're looking like $10,000-$12,000 to my recollection. I don't know. Is that what you?
No, not necessarily. We've been pretty much on our budget for that. Basically, over the course of the year, we're about $12,000 over budget for the year, and that's mostly all just due for the fertilizer, the extra addition.
Are we over budget every month on that type of stuff?
Not necessarily. That's
okay.
It's been pretty close to the budgeted amounts, except for, I believe, the biggest hit was back in April, where we had a very bad mole cricket application, and that was almost $7,000 for that alone.
All right. Clarification. Thanks.
Letting that course get away from us would cost a whole lot more than that, too.
Mole crickets are killing my yard.
Yeah, they're bad.
They're bad. They're awful.
Terrible.
Drew, anything?
No, I just appreciate the report. Thank you.
Scott?
Good. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work moving forward. We're moving into the busy season.
Yes. Busy season's coming.
Bring them in.
Yep, and hopefully this storm will pass us right by.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Planning Commission appointments, item 23. We have 2 openings and we have 2 applicants. I would entertain a motion to renominate.
Move to approve John Junko and Mr. Newton White to reappoint them to the board.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Newton, you want to come out and come up here and talk us out of it?
No. Okay then.
Okay. All that being said, all in favor, signify by please saying by saying aye.
Aye.
Well, that was a mouthful.
5-0.
Like sign nay.
Trying to
None?
negotiate a raise.
5-0. You're rehired at the same rate of pay as last time.
And thank you.
Thank you, Newton.
Thanks, Newton.
Appreciate it.
That's
We do have a very good, devoted board. They do their work. They do their homework.
We have a diverse planning.
It's getting more diverse.
You want planning experts on that board, but you also want people from different points of view in the community. And before, I think we were probably a little bit too much. I like the balance of it now. It's
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to.
It's a lot better.
I just want to express my pleasure with Newton White. I've spent a lot of time with him over the past couple of years. Newton, your passion for history, that's a connection we already have. But your knowledge of the city it helps me tremendously. So anytime phone call away, I contact him a lot. So thank you for everything, Newton.
Sucking up one person at a time, I see you are. Debbie Connors.
Dwight, you're next. Dwight, let's.
Debbie Connors, come forward for just a second, please.
Uh-oh. She's like, what?
I told you not to come.
What did I do?
Well, first of all, I got to say congratulations because we re-upped with you in the consent agenda. But for those of you that don't know, Debbie is also our representative on the Volusia Growth Management Council,
yes,
which she has just recently been elected chair of.
Nice.
Because she had all that extra time.
So I want to see how you hold a gavel.
That was a great honor. Thank you.
So while we're talking about boards, you were here and I wanted to thank you and appreciate you stepping up and doing that for us.
Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Item 24, first reading of ordinance number 2017-19. Ordinance number 2017-19, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Section 54-134A relating to the Police Pension Fund Board of Trustees' term of office, providing for staggered terms of 4 years for each trustee, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Now, this was continued from July 18th. Do we have to bring it off? Or are we just moving it forward?
You're fine to move it forward. It's not
Fine to move it forward with a motion?
Tabled, yeah.
May I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve ordinance number 2017-19.
Second.
And we voiced our concerns last time, and we decided to. No, come on up.
Yeah,
no, I'm
please.
just recapping
Karen.
the scenario a little bit. We all had, just like anything, there are pros and cons. But we have a full panel tonight, and you're back to bewilder us with the facts and figures.
To bewilder you, yes. My name is Karen Ronzaval. I am the plan administrator for the Port Orange Police Pension Board. And I thank you. We were here in July, and I brought forward the board's request to increase trustee terms from 2 to 4. I believe that there was an excellent recommendation that came out of the dialogue, and that was to create the staggered terms. Your city attorney has prepared that ordinance, which creates staggered terms such that as of your next meeting, assuming adoption of the ordinance, that 3 trustees will be elected for 4 terms and 2 trustees would be reappointed or appointed for 2-year terms. After the end of those 2-year terms, then it would
4 years.
The appointments would be for 4 years, thus creating the ongoing stagger. Attorney Roberts did attend the last meeting of the Port Orange Police Pension Board on August the 18th and presented the ordinance. The board directed its actuary to prepare the statutorily required statement of no impact, which you should have in front of you right now. And so I'm just here to answer any questions. And thank you for your support. I think the staggered terms was an excellent idea. I know there's been a slight revision just to make it clear that we're always going to stay on that October 1 renewal basis. So if a vacancy should occur midterm, then the person that was appointed will be appointed to fill the balance of the vacancy and not start another 4-year term. So,
questions?
Any questions in that regard?
No, I think we worked out the concern about the council member has to be more flexible.
Chase, anything?
No, I'm good.
Drew?
No, I serve on that board, and so there was a lot of discussion in our own meetings
that,
and
yes.
here, so we don't need to extend it, but it makes sense to do this, and
Yeah, I think
especially the staggered terms.
You think it's a good idea?
Yes, I do.
Oh, I'll have to rethink what I thought then. Scott?
In anyone who's currently serving needs to be reelected in order to obtain a 4-year term.
Right. Obviously, the board has adopted policies on how to conduct its elections.
Right.
At the present time, there is a call for candidates, if you will. If we have 3 candidates, we have 2 open positions. If we have 3 candidates, an election would be conducted. If we only have two candidates, then they would be basically reelected by acclamation or by virtue of no opposition. Same as what happened with city council. But this doesn't happen that often, does it? No, it doesn't happen that often.
I'm going to sit here and say that one of the things about having served with you guys that I really appreciate is that sometimes we change our minds. We don't come in so entrenched. And this was something that I was totally against doing until we had a conversation last time. And you filled me with a lot of information and facts in the back chat before that meeting. And I think sometimes it's okay in the wake of new information and having time to examine it to change our minds. And I will say that I'm supportive of this as well. Any other comments? Anybody else like to speak to this? Being none, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Councilman Silver?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Have a
just-
safe drive home.
Yes. Everybody,
Stop for gas.
be
No,
safe.
no win yet. And with the YMCA suspense coming up, I'm going to put you off for 7 minutes while we call a recess. I want us fresh when you guys come up here, okay? 7-minute recess.
I want to go this weekend.
And we're back.
He's got to start.
Give you a discount if you're willing to go.
Thank you for keeping that 7-minute break to 8 minutes. I appreciate that. Item 25, approval of lease extension for the Port Orange YMCA and Halifax sublease. Alan Rosen.
Honorable Mayor, Council, City Manager, Madam Attorney, Alan Rosen, Assistant City Manager. What you have before you tonight is a request for an extension of the YMCA and their sublease. The request was for 3 months from the staff. You also see a request from that's in the agenda packet from the YMCA for 6 months. We'll discuss that tonight. Members here from YMCA too to kind of talk about the issues that they're seeing from their side, so that we can move forward. Before we do that, just to kind of give you a little bit of background about where we are and why we're requesting a 3-month extension. Last year, council approved a 1-year extension to the YMCA lease, so that we can have time to kind of get through this movement of what we're doing with all our contracts. Do what we say what we do, make them clearer, make them more understandable. And so over that period, staff has been working to get together a draft contract. We had a meeting with the YMCA that we said we were going to try to get them that draft in April. We were about 3 months late on that, and that's one of the reasons we're requesting a 3-month extension. So therefore, the one we're looking at right now is renewed until October 12th, 2017. And
did something happen last October that would have slowed things down a little bit for us?
No, nothing at all. Nothing that I can think of.
Nothing named Matthew?
No. Matt Jones is quick. I don't know what you're talking about.
Matthew Burnett?
Jones? Because my face apparently isn't up here enough, I decided to put it on the screen too. We sent an email back in July, and we've been working together with the YMCA on that draft contract since then. Again, 3 months behind that original schedule, which would put us till about December, and we wanted to kind of work through some of those issues. So the only issues we have left, we actually kind of worked out a lot of the minor issues. There's really only a few big ones left. We're hoping to work them out among staff. If we can't, we would come back to council and ask what your bidding will be. Those are the use of the pool and the gym and dedicated maintenance personnel. Tonight, however, we wanted to discuss the rent. The reason this is so important is to really be fair to our partner organization. They've got a budget planning process, and of course we're already in our budget planning process towards the end, and their fiscal year starts in January. So in order to really help them prepare for what they need to prepare for, if we don't have this discussion tonight, it could put this timing off significantly farther down the road. So we wanted to be fair to them and have this discussion. To give some background on the rent has remained the same at $205,000 since 2008. And when we look at rent to try to figure out what we need to be able to maintain the building or where we go in the future, there are a number of things we look at. Because they are a partner of ours, and they do, I don't think anybody would deny, they do great things for the community. We want to figure out what are those things that really filter into it that we need to make sure to maintain the building, but also give them some benefit for things that they do for the community. One of the things, of course, we looked at last year when we knew we were coming into this conversation, we did a broker's opinion of value. We have somebody that we have on contract to do that kind of work. And so we asked Mr. Trost to put that together. This was literally about a year ago now where we did this analysis. And back then, that building on the open market would rent for anywhere between $550 and $650 a square foot. Right now, we rent it for about $475 a square foot. And we figured we're not going to update this. We're not going to do another one. We've done it before. This is what we'll go with for now. To give you an idea of annual rent and where we are and where that would be, the annual rent right now is $205,000, as I mentioned before. The low market rent is about $238, medium somewhere $259, and the high market rent's $281. So the current market discount of that building, the market discount that we're giving to the YMCA, is anywhere between $32,000 a year and $75,000 a year. So, as I mentioned, the other thing is, what about the public good? What kind of benefits are they giving to the community that should also go into, what we're thinking about for the rent? In this process, we received a letter from the YMCA. In that letter, they stated, YMCA serves more than 10,000 Port Orange citizens and gives out more than $50,000 in financial assistance for memberships and programs. We don't have time to analyze that or ask for any information, so we just take that at face value. So assuming that's just taking that at face value, at $50,000, we look at the current rent paid, which is $205. Average rent for the market rate is $259. That provides a benefit of about $54,000 a year. So also, the other thing we need to take a look at when we set rent is what are our liabilities coming up with that building? What do we need to do to make sure that building is maintained properly so that they can provide their programs safely and efficiently? One of the things coming up next year is $16,000 for AC replacement. We've done some this year. We have some coming next year. We need to resurface the pool. That's, again, our responsibility. That's $135,000. And the other thing is fixing external cracks on the building and then painting. That's split into 2 years. The total project is $107,000. We don't have the money to do the whole thing. Another thing that's come to our attention is that sprinkler repairs. That's actually pretty minimal, about maybe $2,000 or $2,200 last time that at YMCA I think received an estimate on that, but we actually don't even have enough money to do that next year. We probably don't have enough money to do that for 2 or 3 years. So in describing this, I've come up with some scenarios to kind of give you an idea of where we are. We have a separate fund that we came up with a number of years ago to put the money aside to make sure we can do what we need to do with this building. So in the new lease agreement that we're not going to talk about tonight, we're just talking about the extension. It doesn't get rid of that fund. It just gets rid of the notion of putting money in separate pots. We just take the money and put it where we need to make sure that we've got enough. For those of you that own houses, generally when you buy them not with cash, you have an escrow. Your mortgage company will take money from you so that they can pay the taxes and the insurance. The way they set that up is they have to have a minimum balance in that fund every year so that some months it makes money and then at the end of the year it pays it all off. This is kind of the same theory with this. You want to make sure to have enough money in this fund to pay off the building. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, you see in the red there, you have to cut general fund expenditures to be able to pay for the maintenance of the building. If you keep the rent the same, this is what will happen the next 2 years and then 10 years down the line. So you see, you start after the next year, you start gaining some money, but then eventually you're going to have to replace the roof again. You're going to have to do the AC. You're going to have to do these large things. And in 10 years, you're going to have to take money out of the general fund to the tune of about $285,000 to make sure that building is maintained properly. And that's even with building up that money up to $272,000 in 2025. Now, the $36,000 and the $8,000 you see in the next 2 years, we have not cut that from the general fund yet. We would have to cut the general fund further or find that money somewhere else to be able to maintain those buildings just for the programs that I mentioned before, not anything additional above and beyond that.
Wait, explain that again now. Say that one more time.
So the 36,000 negative and the 8,000 negative you see in 18 and 19 in that scenario, that assumes that, one, we do all those projects I just mentioned for next year. We don't have enough money in the 106 fund to do all of those projects. We will have to go through, and if the rent is not changed, we'll have to go through and figure out what we can cut from the general fund to do those projects or bump one of those projects out a year or two. And then, again, you start making money back up in the future years, and then you have to spend $285,000 of general fund in 27. What I did to do this forecast is I look at 10 years of past expenditures, and I look at how things cycle through, because you don't have to do a new roof every year, maybe every 10, 15, 20 years. New ACs maybe 10 every 15 years. So I looked at expenditures in the past and then forecast them in the future to see how that cycle goes. So the proposed rent, which we'll go over in a minute, again, it's not in the extension, but something we need to talk about tonight. The proposed rent that you'll see basically has this scenario. Same expenditures going out into the future. We have a little bit of a dip next year, $12,000. Again, that's something I'm either going to have to move a project out another year or take something from the general fund. I can try to shift something around and work with that and see maybe we can do an interfund loan for a year and then pay that back to the general fund. But then you see, of course, in the out years, you've got a good escrow going where you're not dipping into the general fund towards the end of that bad cycle where you get back to those high expenditures. So the major changes to the lease, again, that are not in the extension, but what we're looking at, and that could contain some issues for YMCA that YMCA needs to contend with, and you need to think about as a council, is we've had specific maintenance issues that we've had said, these are the cities, these are YMCA's, and that's been that way since the beginning. We did have one of the addendums that talked about the 106 fund, the fund where this money is and what can be paid out of it. But in general, you've had general maintenance fully paid for by the YMCA and other things paid for by the city, large things, the building, the structures, the systems. What we're doing in this version is trying to better define some of those responsibilities. As you know, this is your building, and some of those things actually in that building are still yours, like the exercise equipment and maintaining the structures. If they're not maintained properly, it could be a liability for the city. And so we want to make sure that those things are maintained the way you feel that they should be maintained so that you don't have that liability on your shoulders, or we don't as a city. So there's no shift in responsibilities in that case. It's more of just a defining of how those maintenance things need to be done from our perspective. The one thing that will cost more money from the YMCA that we are requesting is requiring one full-time maintenance staff to be on site at the building. That will help our staff have a better liaison with somebody there to identify issues as they come up immediately. What we've seen probably has happened in the past is there hasn't been enough staff on our side, on their side, getting together in a timely fashion. You may have some things that break that could be fixed earlier on that then lead to a larger problem because we can't catch it sooner on rather than later. So this will help us in communication and maintaining the building to the standards that we want to make sure the building is the way it is from now and on into the future. So this would be the proposed rent that we're discussing tonight based on those three things, based on our past history, based on the maintenance responsibilities, what's ours and what's the YMCA's responsibility, and also kind of the public good, looking at those three things. So we did not anticipate raising the rent at all until January. We knew that their fiscal year started in January, and they're all the way almost through their year, and we didn't want to raise the rent until at least they had a chance to look at it in their budget and then plan for it out in the future. Come January 1st, we would take it to the low broker opinion of value. So not the median, not the high. We'd take it from where it currently is to the lowest value. Keep it that way for 3 years. In 3 years, increase it 6% to $5.81 a square foot. Keep it that way for 3 years, and then 3 years increase it to $6.14. Keep it that way for 4 years till the end of the rental period, or to the end of that 10-year period. Basically what that does is it equates to getting it to the low BOV, which will help us be able to pay, which is the scenario I saw you where it basically became green. It will keep us green. It won't make us borrow money from the general fund to be able to do what we need to do to upkeep that building, and also to be fair to the YMCA to make sure they have a good, sturdy building. And it also, if you average it out, except for that first jump, it averages out to about 1.9% increase a year, even though it stays the same for 3 years. Average out, it's 1.9% increase a year. And then at the end of the period, you're still below the high BOV from 11 years prior. So from 2016 to 2027, you're still below the high value from 11 years prior. So you're still getting some benefit if values increase as they generally do. So just to wrap up and then open up for discussion, and I'm sure the Mayor want to bring YMCA up here. The rent hasn't changed since 2008. There's no recommended increase till January 2018. And if we do a 6-month extension, from the staff's point of view, the danger there is further general fund cuts next year to be able to fund the things we need or put those things off. That could result in possible closures of pool because, not like the one we just had, but if it's not resurfaced and there's an issue that arises that's unsafe for people to use and we don't have the funds to do it, or we have to borrow from somewhere else, we don't want them to have to close the pool because that's a revenue generator for them and it's good for the community. We don't want that issue coming about. And then possibly additional infrastructure damage. I know that there's some cracks in the building that we really need to seal up and paint up so that we shore up the building. And as you know, coming into possible hurricane coming, towards us, it's a shelter for the staff, and the staff needs to stay there. And we obviously want to maintain it not just for the YMCA, but for us as well if we need it in the future. So open it up to council's pleasure for discussion, questions, YMCA.
We'll hear from the Y in a minute. First, I want you guys to be able to answer questions of Alan before we get into them. I tell you what, one thing, 3 months versus 6 months, one thing I found, if we give staff 3 months to get something done, they get it done in 3 months. If we give staff 6 months to get it done, they take 6 months. And if we gave you 9 months to get it done, you'd take 9 months. So it's, I don't know, we'll hear from everybody, but that's kind of how I feel about that. We'll see.
Get it done.
Questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
I tell you what, go back to the page where the issues, the things that, that's definitely not it. The issues.
Those are issues, though.
Well, those are issues with the building, but the contract issues, the outstanding issues, let's leave that on there for now so that we can concentrate on anything policy related that we might need to give Alan and staff that they need as far as our direction to make sure that we're all on the same page. The last thing I ever want to do is tell staff, hey, go negotiate a contract, and they think they've done a great job, and then it comes to us and we're not so happy. I've seen that happen before, and without feedback from us, it can happen again. Having said that, let's start over. Chase.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm interested in hearing the Y's proposal. I do want to work with the YMCA. I absolutely want to work with YMCA. I think it's a very unique kind of partnership that we've had with the city. Emotionally, I'm attached to it. My mom's worked out there for years, and the last years of my dad's life, he worked out there a lot, and I grew up there. I want to work together. At the same time, we have a responsibility to our general fund, and having looked at our shortfalls and where we're at, I want to mitigate that damage as much as possible while still being a good partner with the Y.
Bob?
Yeah, I share warm feelings to the Y. It's been years here. I do believe it needs to be maintained. It needs to be maintained. It needs to be maintained. And the other concern that should help give you some direction, I'm not interested in making money. I just don't want to lose too much. One of the problems we have in the city is that our general fund is under assault from several areas, and it's about ready to crack. So I would like not to make any money out of this, but what do we need to spend to maintain a quality product there in terms of the building and the equipment that we're responsible for? And I think our current concern is because in the last couple of years we're starting to slip into the red in that our costs are far more than we're getting in rent. So I'd like somehow that to be balanced, and that's what I'm looking for, that the rent basically covers the maintenance, and the Y will have a good quality building that's well maintained and well structured, and any equipment that's our responsibility will be maintained by us in a proper way, and that we have enough funds to do it without impacting our, I feel like I'm dealing with an endangered species when I'm dealing with the general fund. It's been taking a lot of hits.
Drew?
I really can't add anything to that. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said. The maintenance of the building and our asset is important, and limiting our liability, part of that is proper verifiable maintenance.
Scott?
No, great points. I guess my concern mostly revolves around the age of the building and the complex. And I think as it ages more, the maintenance costs are going to be more. As we spoke earlier, just the general cost of maintenance itself is more nowadays. So as the Y needs those things, I want to make sure that the funding is available to be able to maintain the building properly. It's obviously a heavily used facility, so it is going to require the proper maintenance and upkeep. I don't want to short that. I think it's important, like Bob says. I don't want to make money. I'm not looking for a revenue generator, but I want to make sure that the rent is sufficient enough that we maintain a quality, safe facility that's going to limit the surprises in future years. And they tend to come, but if we can mitigate that and limit that stuff, then I think that's the right course of business to do. How old is the building now? When was the white building? 89. So it's getting there.
Yeah, we watched it get built.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting up there a little ways, and so
Came with the campus.
that's what I got for now.
This is a unique government campus, city center, without a doubt, and the Y has a prominent footprint. And as the landlord, forget what kind of agreement we have, whether we're partners or whether it's just landlord, a lessee, whatever it is. Simply as the owner of that building, we have a responsibility for upkeep, particularly knowing that Y services thousands of people in and out of our city alike, but thousands of people. So it goes beyond safety and security, which is where it starts. But certainly we've seen, Bob, you and I, the number of times where our city has kind of dropped the ball on a couple things and where it's cost us some dollars because we haven't maintained some buildings. Yeah. And that is a concern. So looking out and projecting 10 years and making sure that we have sufficient funds just to fulfill our landlord responsibilities is important. And I think that that's critical.
Yeah.
With the length of the agreement, we also want to provide some cost certainty.
Yeah. And I'd like, as a matter of good faith, anything we do agree to, we develop an account that is only for the rent would only go into that account, and we would, again.
That's how we treat the 106 fund now, isn't it?
Right.
Is it not?
It wasn't always.
Well.
But, I'd like to.
Can't look back and only look forward, right?
Absolutely. I'm not going back to then. But we have a good structured account that maintains, makes sure that any maintenance that's going to come due can be paid for by the rent.
And Mayor, Vice Mayor, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted, because I didn't want to miss the key point he was talking about is I'm not happy about having to extend now. I'd rather have had this already done and wrapped up because we're going into the start of our budget year and the Y is going to be going into theirs in the very near future. But I definitely do not want to go past 3 months.
Yeah.
The sooner, the better. I think it's fair for the Y. It will help them. It'll obviously help our staff to understand where the budget is, and I don't want to kick a can down the road that now puts them in a bad position.
I'm going to wait to hear from them on that, but I will say that I generally lean in the direction of having a sense of urgency about things, particularly when you send Alan Rosen on a mission.
You want to get him back for his next mission.
I just want to clarify that our budget, which you will hear second reading, is based on a January 1st rate increase at the low BOV. So if anything different happens, we'll figure out how to manage the budget from there, but that's currently how it was proposed to you earlier today.
Mm-hmm. And
so you're clear.
And there's no proposed change that the fund is the 106 fund that money goes into to maintain that building, and those monies that are specifically for the building are maintained separately. And that's kind of the forecast that you saw there, the 10-year forecast of that fund going up and down. So there's no change in that. It's the direct language saying we're going to take this money and put it here and this money and put it here is removed from the proposed budget. From the proposed contract. But it's like renting a building. If I'm renting my house out, I don't tell my renter, I'm going to put this money in here for you and this money in for me. I take it all, and I'm a good steward, and I save that money where I need to save it to make sure I need to do, have that money to get a new roof or what I need to do. That also gives
capital projects.
Yeah, that also gives city council and staff more leeway because where before it said you're going to only put this amount in here. So that's the amount you were putting in here. Now, if you need more in there, you can put it more in there, and you don't have to worry about what the contract says you were only going to put this amount or you weren't going to put this amount in there. It opens up whatever we need to put in there, we can put in there.
The things that we've got in the CAP now and moving forward outside of those 6 years even, we've got projected costs of those capital. Do they also include any kind of contingency?
It's only contingency based on, I would say yes, based on past expenditures. Because what I did is I looked 10 years back. Some of those things we didn't know were going to come up, like the cracks in the building that we're going to need to maintain. So I looked back at everything, whether it was planned or whether it was unplanned, and added that as part of the cycle.
Well,
Now, it could, if it blows down.
It breaks down kind of into two questions for me. One is that how did we determine what to budget, and did we factor any kind of contingency into it? Because what a roof cost me 5 years ago is not what it's going to cost me today, much less 5 years from now.
Right.
So I'm just kind of how we built those projections.
Yeah, using past historical expenditures and looking into the future of what, increase in expenditures might be if we had to do the same thing 10 years from now. And we also do have insurance on the building. If anything catastrophic happens, we do maintain insurance for the major systems.
Yes, we do.
So.
Dang straight. A good landlord would do that, wouldn't he?
Would, yes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add before I... Okay. Get out of here. Go away. Go away. Sit down, Mr. PowerPoint. Bob!
Good job, Alan.
Bob Ludlow, 6056 Winding Ridge Lane. I'm just here to talk about the why. I was not prepared to have a rent discussion with you today. I really just wanted to tell you about how great the partnership was and how thankful I am to be a Y guy and to be able to play basketball with those young guys.
We're still going to kick
like
that back to them and work out with you guys.
Yes,
but.
Chase or you on the treadmill. So now, I mean, this partnership goes back 27 years. Now, we haven't missed a rent payment in 27 years. I don't think it came back to us at any time and asked us to pay our rent. There wasn't a month that we haven't paid. And that's about $4 million and $1 million in our R&R fund to fix the building. So I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to update or make an amendment to my letter to you, Don. We have 10,000 people. 6,000 people, members at the Y, are citizens of Port Orange. The other good news is we draw in 4,000 people to shop in our shops that come to our YMCA from outside the area. So that's a good thing. I also do want to update Alan because he put the $50,000 in. We give $160,000 in financial assistance. Now,
it's kind of a lot.
That's a lot. And you wouldn't think it was all from Port Orange, and that was what Scott's question was. About 50% of the $50,000 we give is for program assistance. The other amount of money, 75% of that goes to Port Orange people, which is scholarships. So when you're on that treadmill and the person next to you is sweating with you, they may be on a scholarship right here in Port Orange. So the dollars are considerably higher than what we thought. We also have 80 people that work there, so we are a good small employer here. And that payroll is $800,000. $800,000 is a nice little business in Port Orange. One of the things you may not be aware about, and this is something we've had some discussions with Jake, there was an agreement to give city employees free memberships. For 27 years, the YMCA has offered that benefit, 27 years. Now, when you do the math on that, this year it's $40,000, Alan? I mean, somewhere in that range of a benefit to the employees of the city of Port Orange. And that's a good thing. That's what partners do. We take care of each other. $40,000 this year, dating back 27 years. Got to do the math because the city was smaller back then, but can't really tell you what that is. We got the rental, the lease a little bit late, and the concern that I have really isn't with the numbers but it is with the valuation. You guys know me, I'm a banker, and typically cities get 3 bids for everything they do. In this case, we have one valuation of the lease, which is one of the hardest types of real estate to value. Great guy, John Trost, did it a year ago. And when I look at the comparables in there, they're mostly private businesses. There is one that wasn't really the high number in there, is the Omega 40 up in Ormond, which is a long way away, and it's $2 a square foot. So what our corporate board, now I'm on the branch board chair, and then I'm also on the corporate board of the YMCA. When we brought it to the corporate board, a 16% raise the first year. 3 years later, another 5%. 3 more years later, another 5% is a huge raise, along with additional maintenance costs and the equivalent of a maintenance person full-time at our facility, which is a staff person who typically roves around all of our Ys, but you guys want them here. That impact to our financials is larger than we had considered originally. So, I mean, there's a bigger impact to the YMCA. So what our corporate board did was we went out and hired a broker to do a valuation, to really kind of compare and contrast. That's what you would do, 2 or 3 opinions. We haven't got that back yet. Our corporate board hasn't had a chance to actually look at that number, because really a 43,000 square foot building that is 30 years old, that has maintenance issues, as Alan told us, rent usually could go down in a situation like that. It typically doesn't go up, and typically doesn't go up 16%.
Rent never goes down in Port
That's
Orange.
correct. It never goes down. And 2008.
Come on, how long have you lived in
Come on,
Port
man.
Orange, Bob?
So the problem, though, is in the big picture. The problem is in the big picture, if you keep taking the additional rent and continue it to go up, the Y can't afford, and it's not just our Y, it's that broader YMCA. I mean, the United Way cut us back $200,000 this year, $134,000. Sorry, Teresa likes me to have my numbers right, especially in city meetings. $100,000. There's been impact. That's $30,000 in Port Orange. Of the $100,000, the money that was allocated to Port Orange from the United Way for our citizens, $30,000 came out of that budget too for our Port Orange YMCA. At the same time, the rent goes up 16%. So, I would ask you guys to allow us to go back, have our real estate person come, like you would at any other time, get 3 bids, take a look at what the numbers are, and come back with the mean values. And really, the contract itself, we were concerned because the maintenance, as Alan said, ends up going into the city's fund or the general fund or however it goes. City can use it for whatever CIP it wants, because that's your decision. You control where the money goes.
Sure, we're the
Currently,
landlord.
in the 106 account, it goes back to our building, like it has for 27 years. Currently. We're a tenant now, in this case. You're the, so we can't argue that point, but we would like to have our house look nice, for the next 27 years. I think I touched on all the points. I would like Teresa to come up and just touch on our board discussion, because we, like you, I run the Port Orange board.
It was going so well.
She has more numbers. I run the Port Orange Y local board, which is doesn't have the fiduciary responsibility. The corporate board of the Volusia Flagler YMCA has the fiduciary responsibility that has to sign the lease agreement. I also sit on that by virtue of being the board chair. Our board hasn't had a chance to make a final decision on the rent, much less some of the terms and conditions of the lease, because it got to us the day before the meeting, the final. A month. I'm sorry, a month.
Well, the final, yeah, but that's because we had negotiated that.
Let me do something that might save us all some time. And I'm also probably going to hurt Alan Rosen's feelings at the same time.
Oh, Alan's done a great job. I'm going to tell you, Alan's
No,
been
the
great.
reason why I'm saying I hurt his feelings is because, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't care about the broker price opinion part of that. I didn't care one bit. If it said $10 a square foot or $2 a square foot. The only thing I consider relevant to me, and you guys tell me if you agree, is what it costs as a landlord to maintain that building and to make sure that we do it in a fiscally sound way so that we're collecting enough rent to turn around and put it back in that building and be a responsible landlord without going to the general fund and having the taxpayers supplement that. And I think that is the relevant conversation, guys. You tell me if I'm off, because I don't want you running back and getting 3 broker price opinions when we can.
You're 100% right. The question is the value, but there is a value.
Sorry, Alan.
There is a value to the Y being in the city.
Absolutely.
And my boss always told me that if you charge somebody 100% for a loan, but they don't ever make a payment, you lost 100%. So, I mean, our question to our board is can we truly afford a 43,000 square foot, 30-year-old building at $235,000 a year in rent? When we came into this, it was a real strong partnership. And we've paid our rent every single month, even in the leanest times. Not everyone in the city of Port Orange has done that. And if the council would look back at the fiscal ship as it's gone along, not everybody paid every single month their rent to the city. We have. So, I mean, we're a good partner, and we've been here a long time, and I'm passionate about the why. So, any other questions, fiscal questions? I mean, Teresa's probably better than I am to talk about them. I am kind of the person that's in the why all the time. Not only in the hair club, I am there all the time.
I appreciate you being there to beat me up about this in between reps.
That's good. Well, see, Chase was the young guy on the basketball court that I used to beat up when I could, but he always shot over me, and that's why I'm a banker.
And I used to be able to beat my kids, but now they're both taller than me. So.
Any other?
And who are you, young lady?
Specific questions for
Any other
me?
specific questions for Teresa, our CEO?
I'm Teresa Rand, the CEO of the Volusia Flagler YMCA.
I don't have any specific questions other than just maybe some comments for the both of you and what Bob talked about. And he's right. It's been a great partnership and relationship for the community, and the Y has done a lot of really great things for almost 3 decades now in the community. One of the things that I learned over the last couple of years and have found really interesting is that the relationship between YMCAs and municipalities seems to be different everywhere. There's very little consistency. And so you bring some valid points about the Y paying their rent on time. There's other things there that go along with that partnership where, like, our city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase equipment to put into that YMCA that other cities don't do for their YMCAs. And then I know there's all kinds of different things and how the maintenance money works.
That year. When we decided that, we would have preferred a lease, a longer term
Right.
lease.
But my point is that not all municipalities that have a YMCA that are renting a facility to them are also purchasing equipment and doing other things
Well,
like
we
that. And I
actually
know there's
don't
a different.
pay rent to any other city.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
Holly Hill pays us for the facility, plus they pay all the utilities. And,
What's the trade-off there?
And
it's an apples and
service their
oranges thing.
community.
So that's a great
What'd you
analogy.
say?
Is that
it is apples and oranges, though?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why every city's different.
Yeah.
It's a very small Y. They were losing like $500,000 trying to run it like a true park and
Mhm.
rec when there just weren't the demographics there to do that.
so you guys
So-
basically run their park and rec program in
We
the Holly Hill
do.
type of thing?
We do. They're rec programs,
Yeah.
not their parks, but yeah.
But that was my
And
point, I guess.
Edgewater, we do not pay rent. They actually paid us for the first 10 years to equal to the amount of community subsidy.
Because they liked your Y or our Y.
Yeah, and they all
here. The
copied
only
this
reason they
model,
copied
instead of
this model.
charging us
And then
rent.
you guys also own some facilities, right?
We do.
Yeah.
Yes, we own Ormond, Four Towns, and DeLand.
Okay.
We rent the land, but we own the building in
Mhm.
DeLand.
It's an airport lease.
Yeah.
It's a ground lease.
But we do pay Edgewater now, just to clarify,
Okay.
because they just did a $500,000 renovation 2 years ago now, I believe, and so we're
Yeah.
paying them like $10,000 a month toward that.
So my point-
but
my-
they're all different because we deal with all different city commissions and councils.
That was my point. Was
Yep.
was just how different I have found the whole
Very
thing
different.
to be. That it's truly it's an apples and oranges situation.
And I will clarify that actually the city of Port Orange did decrease our rent. I don't know who.
in 92.
Yeah,
In
in
92.
the early 90s,
We
in
made
our
our
first
rent payment.
5-year ramp up,
Yep.
they went in and decreased it for a couple years, and then we increased it more than the original. But just to clarify,
So that's where we
a
blew
true
it.
statement is that they did actually decrease it for us a couple years when we were having some issues.
I think the main issue is for us is we really just want the right why for us to be revenue neutral.
Right.
I mean, and it seems to me not a difficult
Right.
agreement to reach, because basically we just want to maintain the building in a quality way, and that's in both our interest. So, and we're not looking to make money. In fact, I think
not
it
looking
all
to lose it either.
I would just like it all your payments are going to an escrow account that only feeds the building.
Well, and that's currently how it is, and that's
Right.
not how it is in the new
that's what
proposed lease.
Okay, well, I have not really gone through the new proposal. I will.
And then we're still discussing the maintenance issue because we have 3 full-time maintenance directors that rotate among our 7 properties. Because, one day we may need them all at Camp Winona, and the next day we may need them all for a project in Port Orange. So we don't have one dedicated. But what we did agree to do is do a monthly walkthrough. And Alan mentioned it, that, sometimes the city walks through and then we walk through. We don't walk through together. So we did agree in the contract to do a monthly walkthrough with a Y employee and a city employee and document those needs.
And I think that's a positive thing.
And who's responsible
to
for
get a
what.
critical eye to come in.
Right.
The things you walk by because it becomes white noise and
Right.
somebody else
Exactly.
notices it.
Exactly.
Currently, there's nobody at the Y every day that does maintenance?
We have a porter, a day porter, not a maintenance person. We have a part-time maintenance person. Yes. He goes there 2 days, and then he's in DeLand 3 days, and then Bill Kennedy has primarily responsibility. He spends the majority of his time between Ormond and Ormond and Port Orange. And then we have 2 more on the other side. But they come together, like they just spent 2 weeks here completely painting and redoing the bathrooms in the Port Orange facility. Now they'll go off and do a big
I
project.
just can't see how you're not having a full-time maintenance person there. How many people? I mean, that many people are coming through those doors every day?
We
That
use
size?
a software system called Facility Do that a lot of school systems use, so that we're able to
That's all
prioritize.
reactive, right?
No.
I mean, that's
No,
all reactive
not
maintenance.
all reactive. It has a preventative maintenance
Oh, okay.
process
All right.
to it as well. Yeah, it's the same one that Central Florida Y uses. A lot of Ys use it, and that way you direct the traffic to where it needs to go.
My personal concern is I'm not interested in getting in your business. So I'm much more interested in a lease that would stress controls to make sure that,
Absolutely.
Certain levels,
At
minimal.
least not to the point where there's some things part of their business that we are liable for, but
Yes.
not beyond that.
Right.
Not beyond that.
Not beyond that.
Limited intrusions. Just establish standards
how it
that
has to
you
maintain.
meet, and they'll be reasonable. Yeah, just-
And I think we all recognize the nature of what you do has changed over time. So that creates its own challenges for you. Jake, did you have something to add?
Yes, sir. In regards to the maintenance piece, most of the phone calls we get regarding the Y are things that haven't been fixed. What's the city going to do? And so one of the reasons we wanted a maintenance person in there full time is so those things can be brought to our attention from the Y staff, not somebody who gets done working out and walks over to City Hall or gives us a call. And so that's why we asked for the maintenance staff on a full time basis. If there can't be a maintenance staff there, and I don't know, this shouldn't be too hard to be able to walk through and do a maintenance walkthrough weekly from city staff, just to make sure that our building that they can't be at full time is available. I mean, I think I'm still. Diana, am I a member? I know I don't know my locker combo,
Are you
but
a member? When
so
you
I can, I can't walk in the ladies' room, but we all can walk in and take a look at stuff. I just don't do it when I go in there once every 6 months. I go to hit the treadmill, but and the other thing we might want to consider, one of my concerns is the liability for that equipment. We bought that equipment; it's city equipment. Maybe we offer that up. It's just my 2 cents.
Somewhat about that. It's not all of the equipment. If you remember, it's
Just the city stuff.
$200,000
That's
worth
got
of
the
the
asset
equipment,
tags on it.
and it is significant. And we bannered back and forth a couple years ago on that because we would have never bought it. We lease our equipment because the reality is now that equipment is worth about $35,000 trade-in value. That's how we operate on it. So we talked about what were the options of us just getting new equipment, and there's a whole lot of city issues and policies around how we get rid of that equipment, but it's still usable, but it's not worth $200,000. That's what we don't
I don't
buy.
care how much it's worth. I don't want it.
Yeah, why?
Well, I wouldn't, but if the city doesn't want to own it anymore, then can they give it to the Y? And
I would be in favor of that. In
Okay,
fact,
but
I'd rather get out of the business of buying YMCA
We talked
equipment.
about
I don't
that.
think that's appropriate
That
to begin
equipment was
with.
bought, remember when we did the
With the whole
renovation with the
renovation.
R&R account, that came out of
That added-
106.
right.
I remember that.
Yes.
And Bob was exactly, it came out of
But,
106.
so just to be clear,
It's our money.
moving forward, unless you tell me otherwise, the 106 fund and the money, the city has a responsibility to maintain that building.
Yes.
It's our asset.
That 106 fund is to maintain that building and maintain that pool, our assets. Buying equipment, in my opinion, having been on this staff for 2 years, is not part of the 106.
I agree.
That's more of a donation.
And so let it be so, regardless of what happens here tonight, and be done with take the asset tags off it.
I honestly wouldn't mind transferring the liability of the
Just for that
maintenance
alone.
and the operation of those machines to the people who operate that facility.
I know we're off topic from rent, but that would be one little nugget to ease the pain here. It might make the pain worse, but I personally don't want my car in their garage, if you will. Just give it to them.
Let's put it
Especially knowing what you drive.
basically, city does not want to have liability for materials it does not control, which is not an unreasonable position.
Right.
And you would feel the same way.
Absolutely.
That's a very cheap insurance
Yeah,
policy.
so, but other than that, this should be an easy deal because
I will never use the word easy when you're talking dollars and cents.
Just keep in mind when the decision's made that it does affect the general fund, that every year we have a very spirited discussion on the general fund. So anything that comes out of the rent will go to general fund in some other way.
Well, let me poll the members right now, just in general. Are we all agreed that the direction we're giving staff in negotiating rent is that we're not looking to make money, but we're not looking to lose it either?
correct.
I think we need to have enough to pay for the maintenance needs. I mean there's
Can't afford to
$135,000
lose money.
$135,000 pool renovation coming up.
If I'm losing money,
16,000 AC, this, that. I mean, there's a lot of expenses, and
I think
the
that's
rent.
included in there. I don't think we're.
let's
Yeah, but
face it.
I don't know of any. I don't know of any landlord either that that has a long-term tenant or if somebody's renting your house or whatever. If the house gets older, they don't reduce the.
Well, the reality of
rent.
it is
lease.
if we lose money in this fund, it's coming from the fund that we pay our police officers and our firefighters and our parks.
Yeah.
And
We can't do that.
I just can't do that.
Can't do that.
Now,
And
could
we're all tax-
could the rent be restructured? Maybe, I don't know. I think what we need to do is let staff work that out with you guys.
Well, and in the long run, we've paid $6 million, paid off the bond. So realize this was a bond-funded project. So it was a tax-exempt bond-funded project when Bob was here, when we did it. The bond is extinguished. We paid the mortgage off for our owner. Like
That's what every renter
every renter does that. That's a smart
what every
business
renter
decision.
does
So
that.
we have to decide. Well, we have to decide if we can afford to live in this house any longer. I mean, our board has to struggle like you guys do with the general fund.
And that's a you decision.
That's exactly.
We want to help, but I think we all agreed that we need to be reasonable about it.
Stewards, for me as a taxpayer in this, and the 10,000 people that come to the Y as taxpayers, we got to be good stewards for them. And the 20,000 people, as Scott says, that go through there every single month. There's 20,000 people that go through there. I mean, that's a lot of individuals in the community. I mean, in spin classes, from 3 years old, from infants to 95-year-old people in the pool. I mean, everyone in your community, plus 4,000 people come into that Y to come into Port Orange. So it's the heart of the community. You can tell I'm passionate.
To
I'm sorry.
the original question on the timing of the negotiation, is there do you have an issue with 3 months? Can it get done? And if your fiscal year starts over in January, would that how much of an impact would that make if you're asking for the 6 months?
So in Alan's case, we had told Alan the corporate board's really trying to get its budget together, like you guys are trying to get our budget together. So coming to some kind of financial number, but being a prudent financial person, unless I really have a good understanding of my rent and my number that's set there, it's hard. All of everything is predicated on a report that was done a year ago on buildings that are not similar to our facility, because you can't find too many of these buildings.
So what's the suggestion?
So the suggestion is to let our person, John Wanamaker, the corporate board's hired him to do evaluation just so that we understand if that number's good. We'll work with Alan, we'll work with the city, and we'll come up with an agreement in the next 3. And again, our corporate board would rather have it longer.
I would argue that it's the city's building and it's the city's BOV, and
I'm also going to argue with you that I really don't care about the BOV.
So
the one thing I
Mayor,
care about is the revenue
Mayor,
to maintain the building.
If we don't care, give me a number. We will go to them.
What does it take? The number I'm looking for is the
We
number
gave
it
that
takes
to
to
you.
maintain the building.
We gave
Just the
that to
straight
you.
maintenance of the
That's
building.
what I'm looking at.
We gave that to you.
550.
Go ahead.
That's what I'm looking at.
He's the expert.
So, Mayor, I think maybe if I could make a solution, that the tough part, the rabbit through the snake or the rat through the snake?
Rat through the snake.
Is the next couple of years. We already cut the general fund by $130,000 next year because we don't have enough money in the 106 fund to pay for the stuff that's needed.
Mm-hmm.
We've already had to cut that from the general fund from
We're already
next year.
behind.
I have to cut the general fund the year after that to be able to afford the additional money that's needed just for that building. That's all the rent, $205,000, every single penny.
Not a portion of it, the whole 100% of the rent.
After
And some.
And then some.
And
then some. So we've already cut the general fund $130,000 next year. I'd have to cut an additional 30-something thousand to be able to afford what we need to do for next year. Now I can move some of that stuff in the future, but you risk having to close the pool or having leaks in the building, which I don't recommend. If we could get through the next couple of years, which are the high maintenance costs that we are seeing, we can kind of reevaluate and see if maybe past that we can still keep it a little bit lower for the next couple of years and then ramp up farther out in the future, which will give the YMCA more time to compensate and figure out what they need to do on their end. But the hard part is this next couple of years. If we don't raise it to 230 something this year, we're going to be taking additional money out of the general fund.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would be good for the Y.
But, and I think, as council said, we don't want to kick a can down the road. I think we said we need the money,
gotta
whatever
pay
it takes
for
to
itself.
maintain that building.
We can make it more
without tapping them.
palatable for the Y in the short term, but the bill's going to come due in the out years.
Yeah, maybe
I don't
there's an
want to do that.
escalating, de-escalating, escalate. You
That
guys
never works out good. That never works
If I
out.
can, the way the proposed lease is written, that money is no longer guaranteed to be spent on the Y.
I give you
I think
my
that's a we
personal
problem.
word.
But it's not in the contract.
I give you my
That-
personal word that we will
verbiage is out of
pay.
the contract.
Yeah, but
We,
it doesn't.
Mayor, we will pay.
My board
to ma-
needs, they're approving the contract and the agreement, and you know. with
That
all
building
due
is our
respect.
shelter, emergency shelter.
Yep.
It's the city's building. We have an obligation, as we do with all our buildings, to make sure those buildings are in good working order. But I ensure that the Y is in better working order than some of the buildings that our staff's in. We have air conditioning, and you can't work out without air conditioning. You don't have to swim, but we that's a revenue generator for them, and I want them to be able to swim. And we got to fix the cracks in that building, or it's going to rot.
But I have no problem with an agreement where we guarantee them. What we're saying is basically any they pay in rent will go to maintenance of the building.
Every dollar of their rent is not enough to pay for what
I understand that, but I'm saying that I have
We're
no
proposing
problem
the increase.
with.
But even then, that won't cover it all.
I know.
And as the building gets older,
It's gonna
it
be- yeah.
exacerbates itself. We understand that. And we want to live in a. So if we date back a couple years ago when we were looking to renovate and redo our lease 2 or 3 years ago, add additional dollars, improve the structure, give it a longer useful life, Again, hindsight is 20/20, but that was a vote that the board took 2.5 or 3 years ago not to do that. And at the same time, LA Fitness came into town. So, I mean, we exacerbated our own problem. The city, I'm talking as a citizen on this side now, exacerbated the own problem. We didn't renovate the building when the Y asked for it. And then we celebrated LA Fitness coming to town, which is a competitor, and we know we have to compete with them. And we're okay with that.
I don't think what you guys do is what LA Fitness
But
does.
they don't. We're not. And you were on the board at that time when we had this discussion, Scott. So the problem is the building maintenance hasn't gotten a whole lot better. We cleaned it up a little bit, and we put some new. We Band-Aided it at the time.
Didn't we spend $700,000 in renovations
Yep.
a couple years ago?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's a
There's no
43,000
reason
square
that
foot
building
facility.
That building
it was
is
our
not
dollars.
old.
Yeah, it's old.
We keep
It's 30 years old.
replacing it.
Yeah.
We just spent $700,000. I'm not going down that talk.
Yeah.
We have not made a real profit on that at all. We've just been
Okay.
spending it.
All right.
And
then
we're
that's-
willing to continue doing that.
But that's okay. We have to bring that to our board, and we don't, and I didn't come here for a rent discussion. I really came here to ask for an extension so that we could look at our values and decide if we could do it, work with Alan a little bit more, and try to come to a good agreement with you guys, because the last thing we want to do is we've had such a great partnership, is to antagonize anybody. It's not-
And I hope you understand, my thing is 3 months, let's do it. If that's what it takes, get it done sooner than then, only because I think it benefits the Y. I don't want to kick the can 6 months, 9 months more down the road. Honestly, it should have already been done. We shouldn't even be having this discussion tonight, right? So we'll take some of that, but let's not make it any longer. So let's do the 3 months. Let's get it knocked
I
out.
can't turn back
Sooner
the
the
clock,
better.
but moving forward,
Yeah.
I think the direction that council is giving staff is that we need to be able to cover our costs in operating the building.
All of them, all the costs.
And I know that some of that short term might not be easy to bite with the rent. I'm not sure what that number is. I'm not sure that we can engineer that number lower without getting into the problems you're talking about, Bob, by delaying maintenance to the building. Maybe there's some things we can do with massaging the rent up and down later on. I don't know. But I think what council's asking staff to do is try to get this done as quickly as possible. We're looking at a 3-month time frame. Gentlemen, tell me if I'm wrong.
Right.
And the other thing is
Let's get
that
it
we're
done.
looking to be revenue neutral out of this fund. So we're looking at a number that it takes to be revenue neutral.
We'll work with the Y for the revenue. I think just if you'd address the timeline with a motion for 3 or 6 months, whatever, and then we'll work with.
I'll entertain a motion on the length of the
staff to get an agreement.
I move to for a 3-month extension of the current lease.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any other comments? None. Being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Jake, any other direction do you need from us? You and Alan got what you need, or do you need anything else?
I think we do. We got you have no other boundaries other than revenue neutral.
Yes.
And that just
Want to cover
just to
our
be clear,
expenses.
revenue neutral for FY18 or revenue neutral for the next.
Well, I think we have to plan it.
Revenue neutral.
Thank you.
It's got to be a
Yeah.
better.
I just
Into
don't
the
want there-
future.
I
Into
just
the future.
don't want there to be any
The
confusion.
only thing I would like to ask is those two spreadsheets showing that 10 years out, I'd
Yeah.
like to see what's in those 10 years for that.
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
that's the first I've seen those.
Yep.
And I'd like
They can get it
because,
to you.
we operate 7 facilities, so we kind of know
Yeah.
something about those maintenance issues.
Mm-hmm.
They've been working out in DeLand without an AC for about 2 weeks now, so we know how that goes.
I will not be driving to DeLand.
I know,
anytime
it's
soon.
fixed now. It's fixed now.
So if
But-
you want to go without air, we can save you some
Yeah,
electricity.
we don't. We were waiting on a grant. Is the reason.
There's a sauna in that
We
Y.
got a
if you wanna
grant
go
to
there.
replace.
Now
it.
you know why I don't go, right?
But,
No,
but I
I'm
would
lazy.
just like to be part of what's going into that
Sure.
10-year plan.
Sure.
And I think that's.
All right.
I think that's reasonable.
Fair enough.
Teresa, thank you very much for what you guys do there.
Teresa, we do appreciate you, and we do appreciate the Y, and I don't see any reason we can't work out a reasonable.
Is the pool open? It's back open. Okay, Teresa didn't have the look of confidence on her face.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
If there was a lightning strike.
The whole pool? Yeah. Okay.
And the pool does not generate revenue, just an FYI.
That's
Loses
too bad.
about $250,000 a year.
Well, that gym
We
used
didn't
to
bloody your
not have
chin too
AC
much.
at one
Yeah,
point, didn't
no
it?
pool generates
Yeah.
revenue.
I know somebody that works out at that pool says they pay a lot of money to swim there, so.
Yeah, they do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Did we take
Does that mean I need to
public
come in?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I'm texting you tomorrow.
You're texting.
Item 27, I'm sorry, item 26, Resolution 17-42. Move to author, the recommended motion, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Well, it said it was under, there it is.
Emergency management.
Resolution 17-42 is a resolution of the City of Council of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, authorizing the Emergency Management Director to declare a state of local emergency, commencing at September 5th, 2017 at 11 p.m. Ratifying actions, if any, of the city in response to the local emergency, commencing at September 5th. That's this evening at 11 p.m. and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve resolution number 17-42.
Second.
Jake, this is basically the same thing we did last year for Matthew, correct?
It is, Mayor. It's a tad earlier than last year by about 2 days, but I think I was a little more reactive last year. We got you here. Margaret and I talked about it this morning. She drummed up the reso just to save you a trip in the next day or two. Right now, and I'll talk more in city manager comments, but we're making some preliminary planning steps, none which are costing an inordinate amount of money, but I just want the ability to act without having to call a special meeting and get this thing going in the next 2 or 3 days. should
I'm not
things
waiting
develop.
till Thursday evening to
Correct.
when we know what's out there right now.
Right.
And-
Comments, council? Bob?
Yeah, I'd just like, City Manager, I'm available. Anything you need me to do, I'll be available to do it. This will be a high priority for me to make sure anything that needs. So
I appreciate your support. I'll tell you what, one of the things that I didn't, Vice Mayor Ford, one of the things that I didn't utilize to my advantage last year was council's ability to communicate. So I'll be abusing that privilege this year should I need to.
Sure.
When you need to.
You all have access to a lot more citizens, and if you recall last year, there was a lot of I didn't knows. No matter how many newspapers and AM and FM radio stations we went to, there's a lot of I didn't know. So I know a lot of people knocking on your door there, Vice Mayor Ford, and I'll be pushing as much information via whatever way you want to get it out.
Chase, comments?
No, I appreciate the proactiveness on the manager and staff, and likewise with Bob. Anything I can do to help, I'm on board. And even with the cleanup afterwards, my friend here in the crowd, we were cutting down trees last year for anybody that needed them.
Were those specimen trees, or were they?
No, they were all oaks under 36 inches.
So if anybody out watching, my number is on the website. I'm at the service.
Appreciate it.
Drew?
No, I don't have anything further. It makes sense.
Scott?
Just a couple quick comments. One of the things that occurs to me in listening to some of the news reports today is that a potential path, which hasn't really been, I don't know, they don't consider projecting it at 5 days farther, right? But some of the models do show this really unusual path where it comes to the southern tip and then goes straight up, basically I-95 and I-75 all at the same time. And I think that we should anticipate some unique situations with the South Florida folks coming our way, and that impact starting tomorrow. I know I saw where Dade County, I believe, is starting their evacuation.
Key West already.
I think our residents are going to be impacted because we're kind of at that point when you come out of South Florida where they're going to be stopping to look for supplies and gas, and of course our folks are still trying to do the same thing. I don't know that there's a whole lot our city staff can do with that other than just I think we should anticipate that over the next 48 hours our city, as well as every city along I-95 corridor, will get inundated with folks getting off the interstate looking for things and being part of our issue too.
So you're saying I should avoid Wawa West and stay in Wawa East?
Knock yourself out. That's up to you, but.
That's a good word, Scott. I've already had people,
Yeah.
my southern friends, wanting to stay here on the way up.
I did get a call today, couple of calls, and Jake and I've already talked about this, was how soon can we get the sandbags out? I see Daytona, Edgewater, Palm Coast, I think New Smyrna have already got theirs out and available. That's something I think residents are going to be looking for far earlier this time than last because the lines get long in the sandbag pit. And then the other thing was, and I don't know if we did this last time or not, but if a resident has a tree that they feel like it's could compromise their home, can we waive permits for them to cut that thing down and get it on the ground ahead of the storm versus running the risk of seeing does it come through my roof or not? How does that work? What can we do there?
Little too late to be discussing that 4 days before a storm.
Yeah, well,
I recall last storm people
That
did
debris
that.
won't get picked up?
No.
It won't get picked up in time.
The issue is cut the tree down.
But they don't want to cut,
Then it
that's
becomes
6 of
damage
one,
after.
half dozen another, then you have all that
So
These are big. I'm sure these are big
So
trees.
on the ground.
Yeah.
here's the deal.
Yeah.
I get it. That tree was in bad shape and needed to be removed 6 months ago. My wife asked me about boarding up the windows.
So the answer is yes. They would still need to come in tomorrow to get a permit.
You bet.
They can get those still
You
relatively
bet.
quick.
Because what's going to happen if I waive the permits?
Yeah.
Everybody that wants a tree removed is going to remove a tree and go, I needed this removed for the.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying then is, so the turnaround time on that's really quick.
Yes.
Right now, right? They could come in and pay a couple bucks or something to get a permit. And
It depends on the type of tree, obviously. But sure they could, depending on the situation. We had people do that last year.
Okay.
But there's people that aren't having their getting their roof permits today because they're hoping the hurricane comes and they can get a free one next week. But I'll tell
What
you
was your other
all
question?
the roofers will be busy tomorrow.
Sandbags. Because we had that.
I have a load of stuff to talk about during city manager comments. If you
That's
guys
what I
wanna
was going to
vote.
say.
bad.
Why don't we
I
hold,
kinda thought
I'll
we said
spew
hold that question with all the others and let's
I'll
get this
spew,
reso
and
done.
Then we'll, yep.
Any other comments about this reso?
No.
Anyone else like to speak to this? If not, call the roll.
Councilman Tremont.
Yes.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stoltenberg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ford.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Just a reminder, Thursday special meeting, 5 p.m. A couple things we'll be talking about then is waiving of the permit fees for storm damage afterwards, and then adjustment in utilities, giving you authority to do make those changes. And those were things that we did last time for Matthew after the fact, and we have a chance to do those proactively. Jake's going to give us a bunch of information. There'll be an emergency management conference call prior to our meeting, so we'll be able to share that information as well.
Thursday
then.
at 5.
Thursday at 5 o'clock. City Attorney comments?
The first item I need to talk with you about is the engagement of Jim Pickens as special legal counsel to assist with the lawsuit against Florida Enviro LP. You may remember Florida Enviro was one of our vendors for handling the sludge from our waste treatment plant, and they were unable to fulfill the contract. We had to secure a replacement vendor, and that vendor cost us more. So we now have been able to compute the potential cost to the city. If we have to go through full-born litigation on this subject, we could spend as much as $35,000, but we believe there's at least $80,000 in money recoverable. We ask for the engagement of Mr. Pickens and the authority to proceed with the lawsuit.
May I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Council discussion?
Again, cost of business going up.
Yep. Here we go. Anything else? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Margaret?
The next item, Council, you requested information with regard to giving notice to the council prior to any mailing of increased rates to the citizens. We've provided for a sample of what I'd like for you to consider by motion tonight. That language reads, prior to issuance of a legally required notice to increase rates, The city staff shall prepare a plain meaning summary to accompany the notice and shall provide copies to the city council in advance of sending the notice.
I like that, except it's missing a few words.
Okay?
I need it to include something along the lines of in advance of sending the notice with council's approval. What do you think, gentlemen?
Yes.
Absolutely.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
So move. Aye. Second.
Gotta wait for the second.
Second. I'll be an aye.
I'm going to credit Drew.
Yeah.
I'm going to credit Scott with a serious second. Any other good discussion? There being none, council, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did I just vote twice?
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Jake?
Yes, sir. Bear with me here.
Nothing to see.
We've had some pretty detailed conversations in the past few days. Spearheaded started on Friday with Lynn Stevens getting the Public Utilities and Public Works Department, and Jordan Guido getting some FEMA folks on board. When I say FEMA folks, I don't mean the FEMA folks. I would say emergency management folks on board with how we move forward. Utilities/Public Works has done a lot of work this weekend. We're ordering sandbags. We have sandbags. Last year's sandbags weren't really the best, so we're getting the good sandbags. We've ordered some sand. It'll be here in the next few hours. I don't want to give the locations where you can get sand until the sand gets here, because I don't want people lined up looking for sand and it not be here yet. So
We are steering away from the traffic mess at our fire stations.
we are. We have some places picked out. We're going to make sure that they're compatible with traffic, compatible with the police department, and we'll have that information out tomorrow. First thing in the morning will be the location, and then the time. Hopefully, as soon as we hear that the sand is en route, my fear is that the sand goes en route and somebody says they need it in Miami before they need it in Port Orange, and it's going to keep going. So until they get off of 95, I'm not betting on it. So as soon as we get that, the sandbag should be available by late afternoon. Our intent is to have sandbags available from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. As required. A lot of people last year complained that we closed down the sandbags or the sand at 5 o'clock, and a lot of people get off of work at 5 and they don't have time to go get it. So we're going to keep it until dark, which is about 8 o'clock, and we're going to lock it up because a lot of our sand got taken for people's foundations and whatever, sand boxes and whatever. So
imagine that.
Well, the people also could bring their own bag once the locations are in there. They're welcome to bring their own bag as well,
so
right?
Our going in thing is 10 bags per family, plus you bring your own double bags, make them small, because obviously the big lawn bags, you can fill them up, but
you can't lift them at that point.
You're not going to be able to lift them anywhere. So in addition to that, we've secured emergency purchase orders for various services. We've looked at all our diesel generators. As a matter of fact, somebody complained that we were running the generator at the YMCA today. We're like, there's a storm coming. We're running the generator. Making sure our generator, we're pumping down all our retention ponds and all our areas that might be affected by flooding. Prepping that. As I said, Cummins is going to either check our generators. If they're generators that have given us problems in the past, we're going to have standby or backup generators available. We are talking with, as you're aware, we don't have a DMS location anymore per se, because Riverwalk is now mostly park and not so much a place to chip. But I am working with some folks local to have some DMS sites in town, so we don't have to drive all the way out to Tomoka landfill. Yeah. So we'll have a DMS location. I got a pretty good line on one that's almost ready to go. Matt Jones is well versed and has many contacts in how to get those approved quickly. So we'll move forward with that. we actually have two of them that are kind of ready, but the one I like the best is the folks that own that property just have to
Very
get
well
approval.
need more than one anyway.
Yeah, true. So we're also double checking all the storm drainage on the streets to make sure they're all clear. That's only as good as the day we do it, but we're going to do it anyhow. And then we have a meeting. I think it's tomorrow. Jordan's not here, but I think we have a meeting tomorrow with our commercial partners, Walmart, Publix, Radon, U.S. Foods, and whatnot, to set into motion a plan to communicate with them so we know. Remember last year, thank you, Lynn, we didn't run out of water. Everybody had water except for the people who had pipes burst. Yet people asked us where their water is. I wanted to say turn your sink on, but what we'll do is communicate with the Walmarts and the Publix and the Winn-Dixies of the world, and guide to the people to where that water's available to be bought. The Red Cross is standing by, and the rest of the team, Susan Lavallo and everybody, have the EOC food ready. We're working on getting a refrigerated trailer, and the Y is our primary shelter.
Way shelter.
Our Palmer is under construction, the Allen Green Center, but still available for use as our secondary. And we're looking at the fire logistics behind the old PD, the Dorothy L. Huckel City Center Annex, for tertiary. The reason we want all three is because Daytona Beach Shores and Ponce Inlet have asked us if they can house some of their people here. We have an old MOU that's in draft form right now, but I am not going to, if I can, I'm not going to deny our neighbors a place to stay if they need it
Absolutely
on
not.
the barrier islands. So those are the things we're doing. We have a meeting with Ashbrit and possibly Tetra Tech on Thursday, and my goal during that meeting will be to get them here a little bit quicker. We also have a meeting with Waste Pro. One of the items that's coming up on the late September workshop that we probably need to think about is, I mentioned to you that FEMA will not reimburse at all for private roads, for debris management or debris removal on private roads.
In the future or for the past?
Yes.
Yes. We're not talking about the past here tonight. We're talking about the future, but the past doesn't look pretty either. So, and we knew going in that we might not get reimbursed for that. So, don't need a decision tonight, don't need consensus, but I would like to move forward knowing what you all want to do with private roads. There's a lot of them in Port Orange. There are a lot of them in Port Orange. It's a big ticket. We said yes last time. If we do, my intent is, unless I'm told otherwise on Thursday, is to use Waste Pro, who already goes in those areas, already knows the neighborhoods, to go specifically and debris remove from the roads from the private HOAs.
Certainly has the
and
ability
that
to
way,
get it done quicker.
And that way, it's for me, it's not quicker. It's one company does private, so I can segregate and say, look, I know for a fact that Ashbrook didn't do any privates because that was all Waste Pro.
Good.
Okay.
So,
anybody object to that?
No, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Jake, where are we on? I know you said you're going to meet with Ashbrit and Tetra Tech, but are we going to have more trucks available at our disposal for? Because I mean, the pace took a very long time.
I do not know, but I want you to think about this. Texas.
I understand.
I'm not casting stones here.
No, I know.
Texas is a miserable wreck right now.
Yeah.
There are wildfires out west.
Yep. We're spread thin.
If this thing comes up from Miami, they're going to start south and work north. So we had 12 trucks last time. I'm going to ask for as many as we can get. There are tons of trucks in this nation.
Yeah.
I don't know how thin they are spread.
Yeah.
I will
it's a
shoot
mess.
with. I'm going in with. I want more, and I want them earlier.
Okay.
And I think based on last year's comments and your concern, that we're willing to pay the price to get them here a little early if we don't use them. And that'll be a discussion that I'd also like you to consider on Thursday, because I'll get them here right as soon as I can get them here behind the storm to start with those. Let Lynn do her magic in the first 24 hours, and then they're going to roll in right behind. Keep this in mind that without Tetra Tech and without the decals, and if Tomoka can't get a DMS site, then we got nowhere to put the stuff anyhow. So it'll be touch and go there at the beginning. Now, I'm convinced we'll have a place to put the stuff. Don't get me wrong, but as far as accountability, it may be a little bit sketchy on the accounting off the bat if they can't get the people here to measure the stuff and start accounting for it like FEMA likes to account for it. But that's what we're shooting for.
Jake, Atlantic and Spruce Creek, are they not viable for shelter? Have we looked into that?
So Volusia County, y'all got to take FEMA 101.
I've taken it.
Which, by the way, if you haven't, you really
Had
do.
101,
It's part of
102,
your
and one-
responsibilities.
yeah. Had quite a few of them.
So I am talking about shelters for our staff. Volusia County has shelters for our citizens. They're listed on the website. I'll get them out to you all because I'm going to use you as communicators. I think Atlantic is a special needs school. I think Spruce, which one's pets? Creekside. One of them.
Creekside's also special needs.
Yes.
As well.
So I will get that list to you, but for citizens, one thing. YMCA's for staff. YMCA, Allen Green Center, and the Logistics Center. For emergency preparedness staff. They live there because we're in the EOC. This is the closest place to go back and
makes
forth
sense.
to. So yeah, it's the shelters. There's a citizen call-in center. We'll have our citizen call-in center. The EOC is going to be stood up at the Volusia County Thursday morning, I think. But their call center is already, their citizen information center is already activated, and we'll be activating ours if it looks like things get nasty here. So yes, we're yes to the citizens, no to the staff.
Is there anything else you need from us tonight?
No, you gave me the authority I need, and
Okay.
I don't expect to use it for anything other than sand in the short term before Thursday. I'll have more information on Thursday after we talk to our community partners, Ashbrit and Waste Pro.
I've just got a comment on something.
And we'll know where the storm's coming by then, probably.
Yeah. Certainly all our staff, not just police and fire, but all our staff, public works, public utilities, everybody does a wonderful job, pulls
Absolutely.
together, and does a terrific job of giving everything they have when these things happen.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it again for our citizens. I kind of felt bad because I kind of felt like there was an attack on the integrity of our police department earlier this evening without all the facts. I'm going to leave that alone. People can decide for themselves, but I'm going to tell you what. Come this weekend, they're going to be here for us. They're going to be here for everybody. We owe them, it's without a doubt. The other thing I'm going to say is, everybody listening, this is something to be taken very seriously.
Yeah.
If you have not begun your personal plan of where you're going to go and what you're going to do and how you're going to secure your home, that needs to be done now, because you're going to spend the next few days executing that plan. Sheltering in place. If that is not a bad option for many things, but if you get an order and we ask you to evacuate, consider this. If you stay in place, you're gambling, and that's certainly your right. But when you do that, If we ask people to evacuate the beach side or evacuate further inland for whatever reason and something happens during a storm event and you need help, the last thing I want to do is endanger police and fire and our emergency responders during the storm. You're going to have to wait. And once the storm's over, there's no guarantee that they're going to have access to you. They're going to have to rely on public works and whatever happens to get access to you. And further, even if nothing happens to you and you're asked to evacuate and you stay, no electricity, no water, and the more people that don't listen to an evacuation order, the more people there are that are going to be tapping those limited resources, even if they are available. Yep. So I'm going to say tonight, your personal plan of action, whatever that might be, you need to form it and stick to it tonight. If we ask you to evacuate, it's for a good reason. I will say this, there are many times when things have happened all over this country in many a city, when people have been asked to evacuate and they didn't, and nothing happened, and people come back and say, see, told you it wasn't going to happen. We don't do it because we're trying to run everybody scared. If we give an evacuation order, we're always going to err on the side of caution. If there's a 5% chance, a 10% chance, a 20% chance, that's too high. But you can't determine that because you don't always have the facts that we have. Because that chance might be 70 or 80% chance that your area might be devastated. So please, take this very seriously. Medications, all the things that you need to plan for right now, please do so. The other thing I'm going to ask, and I saw it in stores today. I was in Lowe's, I was in Home Depot, I was in Walmart, I was in Publix. There are a lot of people out that have already begun to plan. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I was really impressed with the good people of Port Orange in the area. Everybody took things in good humor, with a sense of humor. It sometimes happens when you have long lines and waiting for gas or waiting to get bottled water, whatever it is. Sometimes frustration with the situation can boil over. You're human beings out there working hard to take care of you, and we appreciate you treating them like, well, the human beings they deserve to be. So, with that, any other comments on this?
Just a quick thought. Yes. Everybody's out of water. It might be a simple thing that hadn't thought of. If you got any coolers, just go ahead and fill up a bunch of coolers. You got a hose outside.
Sink juice.
There's a lot of information that's already posted on the city's website and on the city's Facebook and Twitter feeds, so you can go there and get some. We'll be talking more about this on Thursday. Bob, you got anything to add?
Nope.
Drew?
Not on that, nope.
Scott?
Jake, can we look at additional contractors other than Waste Pro that may be available and interested to come in and work with our city staff? One of the things I've noticed is one of the biggest things you need after this is trucks. We've got equipment that we can have on the ground loading trucks, but the turnaround time to have the trucks returning back is usually a huge delay in that. I'm just wondering, it seems like there's a lot of construction going on in East Volusia County right now, whether it's I-95, I-4, the residential communities that are being developed, and they're gonna be down for a while before they get kicked back up in gear. And I just wonder if for 4, 5, 6 days, and I get that FEMA's not gonna reimburse that, but to some degree at this point, depending on the magnitude of this storm, it may be a nice benefit for our city crews to have some contractors to, some additional equipment to help support them. I know we've done that in the past.
And we talked about this during Matthew. I love when we talk about the past because there's great lessons learned there. But 2004 was before Katrina. Katrina changed the way FEMA does business.
Drastic.
Granted.
So much fraud
Yep.
that now we pay somebody $1 million to check the people that we're paying $2 million to remove our stuff.
Right.
That's not fraud. What was done in Katrina apparently was fraud. So the other thing is all our contracts have to be competitively bid. You can't use local preference. There's a lot of things that have to be done in order to meet FEMA guidelines. What you might want to consider on Thursday discussing, and we'll ensure Tracy provides you with the amount of money we have, is how much money you're willing to spend and not get back. And that will determine how many trucks I can get here.
Well, and that's what I was talking about. I was talking about a discussion that doesn't involve FEMA.
So you need to tell me what your measure of pain is with the fund balance. Sure. I can, I know somebody that can get as many trucks as with a big grin on his face, but it's going to cost us, and you're never going to get that money back.
I'm not sure we're getting our FEMA money back.
Alan and Jordan at 7:30 had a meeting with the state, and the governor was on the line, and New Smyrna Beach chimed in, Mayor Hathaway, when the governor said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I wasn't there, so I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, "Yeah, you can get us our FEMA money from last year."
Good for him.
And he goes, "Here's my cell phone number. You call me if you have any problem. I have all the FEMA guys here." So maybe we can put some pressure on FEMA to get the money to the state and get it turned right around. Alan and I will be working on that in the morning. But we have the governor's phone number now, so if worse comes to worse, we can just call him. We'll work through that. But I'm convinced we're going to get our FEMA money. What our FEMA money is up to them. What we're finding in general is that FEMA's releasing the money. They're doing a good look. They're giving you what they owe you, fair and square, and then the state is going through the whole QA process again before they give it to you to make sure you really deserve what FEMA gives you. So, and that's the word I'm getting. I'm not seeing this happening. That's what I'm being told. So maybe the governor will say, "Hey, stop this monkey business. If the federal government is giving you money to give to the city, give it to the city." So we're hoping that kind of that log jam kind of is released. But to answer to your question is, if we go outside the bounds of FEMA guidelines, we are not going to get reimbursed. They're not going to go, "Well, yeah, you did the right thing."
And I'm good with having that discussion. Just the only thing I would ask for you, then let's do this on Thursday. Just give me a ballpark. What will the money get us? So if we say, hey, if you want to have 10 extra trucks to work with Public Works, it's $1,000 a truck a day. Then I've got some numbers in my mind to know what am I going to get.
And how much you have before the bridge loan fits in.
I need to know what I'm getting for that money.
Yep.
Sure.
What am I getting? How much do we have?
Quantify
exactly.
Got it.
Sir.
Can do. I say that.
Just a way.
Can do,
you
right?
talk about how Katrina changed the way FEMA operated, the way the whole world is operating. People are ordering bottled water off of Amazon right now.
Yeah.
So isn't that amazing?
So, ladies and gentlemen, your sinks work. Your sinks worked during Hurricane Matthew.
Yeah, they did.
I don't know. Yeah, my wife started on the bottled water. I said, "Turn on the sink."
You want bottled water? Take a bottle, fill it up.
We had water. I've never lost water.
You had water inside and outside your house.
That's a bad joke.
Just go in my backyard.
Anything else tonight before we talk about this again on Thursday? If not, we've got River to Sea TPO committee report.
That's mine. Only thing that affects us, the money for the walk lights was because the project's not ready to go right now. They approved it to be transferred from the 16-17 fiscal year to 17-18 fiscal year. So it's still funded. So we have that. And real briefly, because we had a pension meeting, I'm on the police pension board. As of August 14th, the fund was at $33,317,000 and some change, funded at 65.3%, and the return fiscal year to date as of August 14th was 7.9%.
Good. General Employees Pension Plan.
We had a meeting. There's nothing really significant to note. I'll forward you over the numbers from the last one. I won't have those with me tonight.
If nothing else comes before us this evening, have a good night, stay safe, and we'll talk to you all on Thursday afternoon.
Thursday.
Woo!